Whoa! Welcome in to another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of HockeyRoyalty.com. We have a doozy of a weekend, that whirlwind that never stops, the tornado that never torments, or always torments. Let's get in the chat, like and subscribe. Let's get on it. I just got to say, if that Byfield goal doesn't win goal of the year, we got another thing coming. Right? I mean, it was top three. I forget who it was. It wasn't for the SPs, but it was for something else. But thank you for the intro. Hold the Night 2 Sick intro. Appreciate that. Azera made the intro for us. They have their new album out, self-titled, out wherever you listen to music. Boys, welcome back. I did a little solo dolo last night with NHL Hockey Pros. If you want to get our episode last night about the draft, go check him out. Subscribe to his channel. Does a lot of great stuff. I assume, based off a lot of people's reaction to the offseason, they think we're going to be picking the lottery. So if you want to subscribe to him now, you'll know about the 2025 draft. Not sure I'm there yet, but we'll dissect it today in this episode. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, I got to check on my boys. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Like you said, it's been last few days seem like they've kind of flown by here, right? I mean, we just the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final was last Monday. And then, I mean, after the weekend of the draft and free agency, man, like you're right. This perfect title, Weekend Whirlwind. That's what it feels like. How you doing, Joe?
Good. Better today. It has been an absolute whirlwind. I probably like Monday night, side golf league Monday night, tried to shake off whatever that day was in LA Kingsland and played 9 holes. And then I started to feel like absolutely, I was like, what the hell's going on? It's July. You're not supposed to get sick in July. And I was out of it yesterday. Shut it down yesterday evening early, got a good night's sleep. I probably sound worse than I feel today. So I feel better, ready to rock.
Joe is Jon Snow in the Battle of Bastards for all you Game of Thrones fans. He's taken on that entire line by himself.
I don't know who any of that is, but I told my buddy, everybody has their own buddies they probably bust balls with, but it was very much the Michael Jordan flu game I was telling him at Monday Golf League. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, other than that, ready to rock. Like it's been kind of crazy. Like Russ said, a bit of a whirlwind with the Cup final, the draft, the free agency. There's been no lack of like news and entertainment, and it's kind of fun.
We could have done a show a day for the last
easily.
6 days. Easily.
It's so much fun. Like that's the plus side of the season ending, getting right into all that other stuff, just because there's no break. Yeah, it's awesome for like content and entertainment, and it's a great time to be a hockey fan. I would say maybe a little less so for some teams, but it's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. I love it.
Because we could have done 30 minutes to 45 minutes for the last 5 or 6 days. We got a 3.5-hour episode planned tonight. We're having intermission. You guys can get some snacks, pop some popcorn. No, the way we like to talk, it probably could go 2 hours, and so we might as well get into it rather than waiting. I know everybody wants to talk about free agency, but our boy Russ was at the draft. He was in the Sphere. He was part of the Sphere. He was one of the Spheres in Vegas.
With the Sphere.
And it looked epic online, in person. How was the atmosphere? It seemed buzzing in there. Did you enjoy your time in Vegas?
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you walk in there, you see the pictures of everything inside, and you walk in, and you get lost. First of all, so I had no idea where I was going when I was walking in there. But I mean, you don't realize like how many actual seats there are. I mean, all the pictures and everything are just of the screen, and that's good reason. But then you kind of look back and you're like, wow, there's like 3 legitimate sections of seats where people can sit. And I kind of sat in the 100 sections, which was the first level for like the first couple picks of the draft. And then, man, like the production that the NHL put on was outstanding. They knocked it out of the park with everything that went on. And I was actually kind of surprised that they were able to sell it out almost for the entire first round, which was really cool. So, I mean, the fans were energized. It's really cool to hear or to see like fans' reactions to draft picks, which is so funny to think about because, I mean, we don't know how these players are going to turn out when you draft. So to see them kind of like just be ecstatic, like I think it was the Canadian fans that went crazy when they drafted Demidov, and I'm like it's just so funny and overwhelming. But I mean, for the next couple part, I went down to the floor and started watching the draft picks, and I was like right there watching like Celine Dion make the pick, and like well, she actually should make the Demidov pick, but I watched like Michael Buffer pick. That was epic.
That was cool.
I mean, to hear him in Vegas, I mean, that caught everybody's attention. So that was really cool. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. It's something that I think I said it. It's so funny to see the NHL do something like this because they just seem like they can't get out of their own way for these kind of experiences. But for them to put on something this kind of remarkable, I mean, it's very impressive. So I thought the fans loved it. Even the players, I think, got a good kick of it, and even the coaches and management. I mean, we were talking to other like GMs and stuff, and they were asking us like how what we thought about it in terms of media, and we were like, yeah, this is outrageously awesome. So yeah, it was just a great time. Yeah, and hopefully the NHL can. I know it's going to be decentralized going forward, but hopefully the NHL can figure out a way to maybe keep the Sphere in its back pocket if they think about it in the future.
Yeah, it was crazy because you had a lot of ups and downs, right? The Demidov pick, and then for Flyers fans, they're a big rowdy group. Luchenko, one of our favorites, probably picked about 7 or 8 picks too early. I'm sure a lot of Flyers fans were like, okay, what's going on there? But could you sense the ebb and flow with fan bases there, Russ? And then how was it with the families as well? Like having those little burst pockets of joy when their kid gets drafted.
Oh yeah, that's probably one of the better parts too. Is you got to hear all the excitement once you hear a name, or even just like the league or the team that they come from. Like as soon as you heard like I don't know, just like Owen Sound Attack, and it's like these families just erupt because they know it's probably their kid, and then you hear the name following. It was awesome. I mean, and like I talked about with like the Canadian fans that were going crazy over Demidov, like Sharks fans who were just going wild the whole time, which rightly so. I thought they had a really good draft with the players they got. So yeah, the fan interaction was great. And the one funny part about it was like they had it's almost like kind of like a 3D because it like almost like goes around the entire wall. So when you're sitting there, like I was sitting on the floor, and every time they made a trade, they had this huge puck that kind of came up to the forefront of the screen, and there's like this loud noise. It's like one of the first times I was on the floor and it happened. I like startled me like so much. Like it's like holy crap, this big puck's coming at me. But it was really cool experience too to have them have that kind of effect whenever a trade was made. And then Bettman goes up there and announces it. That was pretty cool. So like I said, I thought the NHL did a tremendous job with this whole setup.
Yeah, it was like what was it? There's some people tweeting out like if you have not cerebral palsy, but what's the thing when they can't handle bright lights and like repeated sounds? Epilepsy. Yeah. Like there was somebody who tweeted out like, oh, if you have epilepsy, you shouldn't be at the draft right now because that puck comes at you really fast, loud noises and everything like that.
It's a huge screen, man. I mean, I was down on the floor and it's like it goes like it's not just like the side. It like goes all the way up to the top, like behind you almost. So you're like they had stuff like an effects like literally on top. So when I'm like standing on the floor, like I'm looking straight up at like highlights of draft picks that are getting drafted. So that place is unreal, man. I would love to see a concert there because I can just imagine like some EDM show or whatever that they can put on there, like all the effects that they can. It would be awesome.
Want to appreciate all our fans for coming in here and listening. Please hit that like button. Jay Letty. Listening while driving home on the PCH. Just saw a traffic cone which reminded me we actually signed Edmundson. Funny. We're going to be getting to that in a little bit.
Careful,
Appreciate you listening.
Jay, careful
and careful driving on the PCH there. Let's get into just our brief synopsis. We talked in depth on last podcast with National Draft Bros or NHL Draft Pros about in-depth picks. But overall, I thought it was a successful draft. Moved back, we got a player who was in a tier above. Wasn't in our top 5, but we see the pathway for Green Tree there. What are your guys' overall thoughts about the draft and kind of how it unfolded? Maybe besides the trade, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, I think if for all the interviews that Jeannot did leading up to the draft, the way they kind of approached it, it wasn't surprising at all. I mean, he had mentioned multiple times that his goal was trying to get back into the second round or maybe even the third round. And they did just that with that Friday morning trade, trading back 5 picks with the Canadians. So I know some people were kind of surprised with how early they did that. Maybe they should have waited till the actual draft was taking place. But it's kind of tough because you have to also consider, like, you got to find a team that's willing to do that, because you don't know if that team's maybe looking for a player or just is fine with the players that are falling, and maybe they're cool with sitting where they're at right there too. So I think Jeannot had mentioned that actually when we talked to him afterwards, is that they wanted to make sure that they can move back, because they felt like there's going to be a player in that tier at 26 that they were comfortable taking. And so that's what they did. They made the trade earlier in the day, and they still got the player that they wanted in Liam Greentree. And I mean, just to kind of focus a little bit on Greentree, I mean, I don't really know much about him kind of going into the draft. I know we had kind of talked about different players here and there. We didn't really do deep dives, obviously, because picking at 21, you don't know who's going to be there. But I mean, the more I kind of watch his highlights and read about Greentree and do a little bit more in-depth research on him, I mean, man, this seems like a player that the Kings haven't really drafted in the first round in quite some time, like a true power forward winger that can produce and has a little bit of skill to him. So for them to make that pick, I think kind of fits in not only that, like, kind of best player available, if you're kind of thinking that mindset, but it also fits into like what the Kings kind of need right now. I mean, my immediate thought was, man, if you can have Greentree and Byfield grow up together and kind of develop together. I mean, because Byfield's still pretty young. Greentree is only like 17, 18. So not that far apart. If you can have them develop together and kind of grow into a career together, that sounds like a pretty good duo to have.
Yeah, I love the trading back in that spot. I mean, Randy, we talked about had to be close to 20 guys over the handful of shows that we talked about, and Greentree being one of them. So when you think about it that way, there's so many guys in that range that I imagine, well, I know he's spoken, he being Yannetti, about tiers and drafting. So they felt obviously pretty comfortable that whether it was Greentree or somebody else in their tier there that they were going to get. And I just think that's a smart way to draft, especially when you're in the 20s there, to back down and get a pick, to get a pick in the second round, which they didn't have. You know, they didn't have a second or a third, so it made all the sense in the world. And yeah, I like the Greentree pick. I mean, I don't think there was a pick. You know, I know we did our top 5s. I don't know if there was any pick that I was going to be like over the moon excited about, and I don't think there's anything, barring some crazy Thomas Hickey-esque reach, that I was going to be like, what are we doing here? So all that said, thought it was a great way to move down. They got a solid prospect, so I was good with that. I mean, the goalie in the second round seems like a win by all accounts. Like, he's a pretty highly rated goalie. Once we get past the first round, I'm a little bit more willing to do that. So that's fine. And then, you know, they ended up dealing their 4th, and, you know, they've get a project defenseman, and now Reeder was the last pick, if I'm not mistaken, right? Who's a bit younger. So yeah, like, all in all, fine. I would say I thought it was fine.
Yeah, Yannetti talked about because Rob Blake isn't a big fan of trading back, and so he had to run a lot of simulations to convince him that it was a possibility to get a player of that same caliber. And I thought when we were at 21, I thought there was a chance that Greentree would be taken. The guy that I really wanted got taken at 21, Michael Hage.
Mm-hmm. You too, Russ, right?
And then Salzburg at 22, I think. So, you know, you're balancing, hey, I think Hage is a much better prospect than Greentree, much being in my personal thought process, but I'm not a scout. And so maybe the Kings were like, okay, well, you know, Hage might be, let's just use random numbers. He might be an 80, but Greentree's a 75. And that's enough for us to move back and get that, and get that pick in the second. I think George, you're looking at a guy who was rated either 1 or top 3 in most people's draft boards. A little bit smaller effect. Obviously, grew up a Kings fan. Not model his game after, but idolized Jonathan Quick. So you got to love that for him. Got a text from Kopi right after he got drafted, which is pretty cool for the kid. And now you're looking at the Kings in the prospect pool. 2 years ago was the Serengeti in the goalie prospects, and now looks like a bag of riches that we have plenty of opportunities to get there. And then at Dev Camp, St. Hilaire, if that's how you pronounce his game, he's been on a tear. So maybe they sign another one there. We have an embarrassment of riches in between the pipes. I really like the whole there. You see the pathway for Woolley, big, strong left shot defenseman who knows his responsibility, knows his game, doesn't try to play outside of his game, could probably be a third pairing defenseman there. And then Reeder, who is a point per game player in the 7th round. Gotta love that. In the USHL, he's just small. I think he's 170 pounds. So, I mean, if he can put on some weight, which in college you should be able to do, you never know there. I mean, Again, we talk about what is success for these late round picks. If they can play 100, 200 games in the NHL, that's a very successful draft pick. If you can make the league in a 7th round pick, it's a successful pick. Yeah. So, if they can get some, we're not talking about Matt Roy over 400 games. Rest in peace. He's not dead, but he's no longer a king. But if we can get that, even a sliver of that production out of a 7th round pick, it'll be a successful. So overall, I really like the draft. I mean, there's players that I'd rather have. I mean, once Bovair got drafted, had to do a little lap or pour one out for my homie. But you want your guys to get drafted, and then Hudson in the 2nd round. Salim Wallenius. I was like, oh, let's get that puck movie defenseman in the 2nd.
First pick, right? In the 2nd, huh?
No, that was Igor Chernyshov.
Oh, Chernyshov, that's right.
And rumor is he is asking his KHL team to cancel his contract so that way he can come to the States right away. So much for the Russian factor. Yeah, right? Davidoff wants to come right away. Chernyshov wants to come right away. Saliev says he's just going to play out his contract and come. So
we talked about this. The North Americans, it's worse. The college kids, it's worse. Recent years, it's the college kids that are either staying in school or saying, we're not. They're not going to sign, and they're forcing moves out of the organization they get into. The Russian factor is probably overrated, and the college factor maybe a little underrated. No. Least surprising thing in the world, by the way, that Rob Blake doesn't like to move back. Like one of the baseline smartest things you can do for value in draft picks is move back, and he doesn't want to do it. He's about 20 years too late. So glad he's the GM.
I think you have teams that don't want to move at all, and then you have teams that are willing to move here and there, and then you have teams like Carolina that always move back, and they're like, okay, well, you're moving back, and you might know, you don't care about the tiers. You're just moving back to move back. So it's really different how people approach it. But overall, I thought the draft was good for the Kings.
Yeah, I thought, just real quick on Carter George, it was definitely kind of a surprising pick for them to pick a goalie that early. They don't do that. The last one was Chris Gibson in 2011 for them to pick that early. So that definitely surprised me. I'm sure it surprised most Kings fans. But yeah, I agree with you, Randy. I mean, you think about just a year and a half ago, there's really nobody kind of worth paying attention to in the goalie pipeline. And then you trade for Portillo, you draft Slakinski, who looks really solid. Now you draft Carter George. There's a legitimate chance that the Kings could have the goalie for the U.S. team and the Canada team at the World Juniors coming up, with Slakinski for U.S. and Carter George for Canada, which would be really cool. Yeah. So I'd love that.
Hampton and his brother both put in the transfer portal, so they're going to be attending college together.
I think they're going to Western Michigan. I think they chose
West, North, South, whatever Michigan. They're going to go to Michigan.
Michigan's a big state.
But yes. I think it's a cool thing there because you look at Portillo, Patillo, is like maybe a year away, right? He's probably going to get some action as a backup next season. And then Hampton and Carter can be that pushing. They're about the same age, right? 1 year apart. So they could be pushing 5 years down the road for that next age of goalie. Right when Portillo is asking for that massive contract of $7 or $8 million, we'll have two young guys ready to take over for peanuts. So I like that. Let's get into another thing that happened at the draft, which was our first huge trade, kind of out of nowhere. I know the Kings were trying to shop Kaliev, and I thought that was going to be the trade that we heard. But Kings make a move for Tanner Jeannot. They gave up a 2025 second and a 2024 fourth, pick 118, which with the way that the draft dropped, I would have loved to get Aaron Kibiharu in the fourth round, puck moving defenseman. Gotta love him. Told his GM, hey, you just got to steal the draft.
I saw that.
I'm going to make everybody make you look good. Like that's Tom Brady-esque type words right there. He told Robert Kraft the same thing, but makes a move for a guy who had an excellent rookie year. After that, the stats have kind of dropped off. Tampa way overpaid for that trade, thinking that they could have a player that dropped 20 goals. Hasn't really happened since. Likes to fight, likes to drop penalties and give penalties. Really the type of grittiness that the coaches have and Rob Blake has said that they wanted. Was this kind of out of nowhere for you guys? Is this too much to give up? What do you think about the player? Open forum for both my gents here.
I actually really like this trade. I mean, obviously it's surprising. Nobody expected Blake to make a move for Jeannot, but I mean, if this feels like a player that I think that the Kings have kind of desperately needed in the bottom six. I mean, I remember 4 years ago, I was trying to convince, or I was just not trying to convince, but I was trying to hype up the Mason Marchment to LA because I felt like that's kind of the player that the Kings needed, kind of a bigger body, but maybe has a little bit more skill, can provide a little bit more. And I know with Jeannot, he hasn't been that type of player that he was in that year with Nashville. And even then, like at that year at Nashville, I mean, he was scoring goals, but it's not necessarily a lot of the underlying numbers didn't look that great. So high shooting percentage. So a lot of stuff that wasn't really going to be able to continue. So, and then he kind of carries on to Tampa where he just didn't really produce at all. And like you said, Brandon, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth round pick, along with, I believe, another kind of depth defenseman, Hayden Fleury, I believe, was a player that went the other way.
They actually packaged physical lightning and gave it to Nashville.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that they gave up for Jeannot. But even then, like I said, like I feel like this is a player that the Kings have needed in the bottom six. I mean, you look back at some of the players that we've seen in the bottom six. I mean, Grunstrom, Lizotte, Lewis last year. I mean, Kaliev has even been playing in the bottom six. Brendan Lemieux the year before that. Yeah, some of them are kind of physical players, but they don't bring the same kind of physicality that Jeannot brings. I know it's not going to necessarily win you games, but even then, that's still going to maybe put a little bit more emphasis in kind of aggression towards defenders and the teams that you're playing against. And maybe, I mean, when you think about it too, and you've got a lot of young players that are going to be playing in the bottom six, and Alex Turcotte, Akil Thomas. I mean, Sammy Foegele sounds like he might be even getting some playing time too. So maybe now you have a little bit more of a kind of bodyguard for those young players. So I mean, I'm sure some people are a little bit more concerned about the draft pick that they gave up, the second rounder. But even then, I mean, for me, like second round draft picks and whatever, like, yeah, a lot of them maybe can hit, but even then, like, I just think that it's kind of a crapshoot at that point. So the cap hit is what it is. It's only 1 year, so I'm not really overly concerned. But overall, I think I'm a big fan of this trade.
I hate the trade. I don't hate Jeannot per se. What I hate about it is, I explained this in the article because I agree with Russ. Jeannot does fill a role of a player type that the Kings don't have, and I can buy into what he can bring. I don't expect him to score 20 goals like he did. That was an outlier year. So if you told me Jeannot is going to play fourth line in the Trevor Lewis spot, he's going to do his thing. He's going to hit guys in a forecheck. He's going to fight when he needs to. Okay, I'm not opposed to that. That should never cost 2 picks. One of them being a second round pick. That's number one. And number two, we've already seen indications that he's not going to play on the fourth line. He could play as high as the second line. So that is a firm no for me. And even the third line is a stretch. So my issue is less with the player. I don't care. The 1 year, the contract's fine. No issue there. And again, the player himself, I can get myself there. I'm not on board that pick. And to your point, Russ, I don't care about picking in the second round. I care about what what capital do we have to make a trade toward the deadline next year. That's an important draft pick for a trade that's out the door now that they don't have because they traded it for a fourth. You can call him whatever you want. If he plays middle six in Los Angeles, he's a fourth line caliber player. There's nothing wrong with that because the Kings could use. Like I would have loved Tanner Jeannot instead of Trevor Lewis last year. I'm on board with Tanner Jeannot over Trevor Lewis this year if you tell me that's what it is. I'm not convinced that's what it is. And as the roster looks right now, it's not. Right now, Jeannot is a middle six player. So I don't subscribe to that, and I don't subscribe for the price it costs to do that. So this is poor asset management by Rob Blake. I do acknowledge it's addressing a player that you can say was needed. And as John Miller points out in the chat here, Jeannot was a healthy scratch in the playoffs. That's the other thing that people don't talk about when they talk about these tough guys and they want these tough guys and they want these big guys. Well, a lot of times they get scratched in the playoffs because they can't play. Now, I do think Jeannot can play. Like, I don't think he's so bad to where he should be healthy scratch. I didn't follow the Tampa close enough to know why. Tampa's a lot deeper, I would say, than Los Angeles. So there's maybe something to that. But again, it's hard because trade, don't like it. Player itself, fine with. But gonna hate it if you see him playing with Philippe Deneau and Trevor Moore.
I think that's probably what's going to happen, and I agree with you, Joe. Like that's kind of where I kind of draw the line because I don't want Tanner Jeannot to be anywhere close to being in the top six.
No,
like I totally agree with you there. But I mean, if he's playing on the fourth line, and also like the thing to think about too, and people kind of scoff at this, but I think this is a huge factor. I mean, this is a player who's going to be a UFA at the end of his year, so he's going into a contract season. Hoping to prove himself that he's still that kind of player that the Tampa Bay Lightning thought he was when they traded those 5 picks for him. So I think that plays a huge factor in this. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, I think he's going to play almost like a bodyguard factor for those younger players. I mean, but it's got to be on the fourth line. That's where I draw.
But Russ, he's not going to be a bodyguard for Phil Deneau and Trevor Moore. No. Like this is the problem is less about the player. And it's more about the environment and the situation that he may be put in. Now, this is total speculation, right? I'm going out like Zach Dooley, the article for LA Kings Insider. He's going off of, he says like, obviously this can change. This is just based on, conversations with Hill or whatever. Who knows where this slots? But that's scary shit because this team lacked offensive punch and that ain't going to do it. That's for sure.
Are you kind of just more concerned about the actual draft pick that they gave up for him, or are you more concerned about the cap hit that it?
Nope, neither. Fine.
What I'm concerned about is the fact of that this is a continued valuation of who the player we're acquiring is. Joel Edmundson. You're looking at Andres Anglin. You're looking at Jeannot. The overvaluing of these types of players. He's playing on the first line next year.
Jeannot?
It's first or second. I think they acquired him to play that type of role.
Not the start. It might happen throughout the season, but
who's playing first line winger? Warren?
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
But to Randon's point,
but I'm saying they're overvaluing this guy and they're saying, hey, he's worth a second. When I think they outbid themselves. They're like, oh, this guy's he's so sought after. We need to give up a second for him right now and get him going. Like everybody says, oh, he's not playing top 6. Look at last year. I mean, Trevor Lewis played 82 games. Andres Anglin played 82 games. When they had other players that were able to play, I would bet my bottom dollar he plays more time in the top 6 than he plays in the bottom 6 next season.
That right there, Russ, is. So I don't care about the contract. The cap hit's fine. I don't like the trade price paid because I think if the Kings are a team that fancy themselves a playoff team, which I'm pretty sure they do, they did nothing this year, partly because they were cap strapped, partly because they didn't have a ton to trade. And now they didn't have a second round pick for this year, so they really couldn't move anything. So you knew they were going to move their first. They hadn't had a first in a while. They didn't have a second. They had nothing to trade at the deadline. They couldn't add anything, even if they wanted to. And now you go into next year, you just fired one of your bullets on a fourth line player. And I don't like that. But I can get past it and get over it if I knew he was sharpied into the fourth line. I don't believe that to be the case. And right now I'm looking at a lineup that has both him and Lewis in it. So that is my concern. That concern, like I said, I can find myself and make my way to being more on board with it if come October, which we're a long way away from October, by the way. I understand this podcast, a lot of stuff is a lot of up and down or whatever, but like it's a long way. There's a lot of to go still. But you open up that lineup sheet, or you see that you're at the game. Shit, I'll be at the game. I'm going to probably be in Buffalo to watch. The season opener is going to be in Buffalo, and I'm going to be in warmups, and I see Tanner Jeannot next to Philippe Deneau and Trevor Moore. That is a problem. That is what my issue is with it, Russ. Is the price, the acquisition cost, and then where they actually play this guy.
They've openly admitted to misplaying players. They openly admitted to misplaying PLD. They played Deneau as a second line center, which in a championship team he's not. Like that's what my thing is. I think they overvalue these guys and have them play roles that they're not supposed to be playing. The second round pick, like you said, Russ, like the chances of them playing 200 games is what, 25%. So you're talking about.
I mean, they traded a second round pick for Elias Anderson. I'm not saying throwing that kind of trade, but I'm just saying
that was a gamble I'm okay with because Elias Anderson was a top 10 pick.
Correct. That's
we know gamble. What Jeannot is, and everybody who's in the chat or
around like it happens. I mean, the Kings got a second round pick for moving back 5 spots. I mean, it just is
right, and that was great value, and then they butchered the value. But my issue is with I don't trust the organization to play him where he should be playing, because I think if you tell me he's a fourth line player, let me watch Tanner Jeannot run through Rasmus Dahlin on opening night. I'm going to be pumped. Like, that's fine. Because I agree with everybody that's been crying out for they need to be tougher in the bottom 6. I agree, but I don't need guys that can only do that. I need guys that can play a little bit too. And I do think Jeannot can play a little bit, but I don't want to see him too high in that lineup. That scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I think they're just banking off that year that he had in Nashville. And
that's 4 years ago.
That's stupid.
And I know. I agree with you guys. Like that's what they're banking off of, and like they're banking off that he's going to a contract year. To be honest with you, this sounds crazy, but more Jeannot doesn't sound too crazy to me. And I would we play an 82 game season. I'd be okay with starting it out, but no, I don't want him playing minutes with Kopitar. I don't want him playing minutes with Byfield. But Deneau, we've seen be able to kind of carry guys. And if Moore and Deneau, we'll talk about the whole lineup its entirety later on. But if Moore and Deneau are kind of doing their own little thing where it seems like they have this cone head thing going on the ice every once in a while. If they're doing their own thing, Tanner Jeannot standing in front of the net willing to pot home goals, that's cool with me. But I know I'm being a little ambitious there, but
it's optimistic, and I'm fine. I'll listen to that.
That's just a player like I said earlier, Mason Marchment. I was a big proponent of him coming to LA because I felt like that big body who maybe can bring a little bit of skill was something that the Kings desperately needed. And I feel like Jeannot is kind of like that poor man's Mason Marchment. And I know he's not necessarily
poor man's Mason Marchment.
I know he's not necessarily as skilled as that player. Maybe he has the production he is, but I'm willing to see. I don't think the gamble is as risky as a lot of people make it out to be, or maybe you guys make it out to be.
I don't think it's a gamble. I have zero problem with any of the trade other than what I think that Rob Blake thinks Tanner Jeannot is. Okay, that's the only right. The second is it's a crapshoot. I think it's too rich for what he was. It is what it is. They threw it around, right? Or or the fact that they got rid of Grunstrom, who was a similar player. Obviously doesn't fight. He has more goals than Jeannot in the last 2 seasons. Or the fact that Jeannot hasn't played a full season in the last 3 years.
Oh.
So all 3 of those things, the fighting I could care less about. But Grunstrom is the type of player who can score and hits. He led our team in hitting 2 years ago, right? If we're talking about goals from 4 years ago, we can talk about hits from 2 years ago. So I don't know. I just think that they think Joel Edmundson is more than he is. They think a lot of the players that they're getting and we've been keeping an eye on this guy since 1996, and we finally get a chance to acquire him. Like, let's go based off our old scouting reports that were written in pencil. Like, no, this is modern hockey. Reevaluate who these guys are, because who they thought PLD was, he wasn't it, or the way they deployed him. Either way, who they thought Joel Edmundson is, not that dude. And I have a feeling that they're going to do the same thing with Tanner Jeannot. It's like, oh yeah, he scored 24 goals 40 seasons ago. He could have been the Calder Trophy winner, yada, yada, yada. But that's not the guy. Like, I think we need to reevaluate what we think about these players and have a flowing thing. Like, and the fact that they're, hey, I was in on this guy 3 years ago and we finally get a chance to, it's like waiting for your high school sweetheart to become single again. Like, let's not, like, move on and go to the bar and meet somebody else. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, if they're going off in Nashville, that's really stupid, because that was a few years ago. But like, the other thing is you look at, so I'm just looking at some of his NHL edge data, because I think a lot of the talk is, he's fast in the forecheck, and I think we know he hits, right? He was among the league leaders in hits per 60,
which we do need. I will give that to him.
And again, his forechecking, I get that, but like, he ain't the fastest. He's above average with his skating. He's below 50th percentile in 18 to 20 mile an hour speed burst, below 50th percentile in 22 speed burst. Every single one of his shooting, his shot, top shot, 100, all the shot below 50th percentile. So like, there's not a whole lot here just in that stuff. Then you look at his tracking data from all three zones. That wasn't very good even in his good year in Nashville, which he shot 19% at. All this goes back to say, I'm still comfortable with him as a fourth line player, because I think he fills a role the Kings did need. I hear everybody that has been saying that, but that's to replace Trevor Lewis. And if they're both in the lineup, we're going to have a problem scoring goals again.
Let's just say maybe if things don't go as well as we all hope that they will, maybe they can flip him at the deadline for that second rounder that you're looking for.
Oh.
We might be having to flip a few players at the deadline with our lottery pick. You know what's not a lottery pick is betting with Draftkings, our official sponsor here at THPN for all your betting needs. Draftkings, the Stanley Cup has ended. The actions at DraftKings Sportsbook does not end, because they're the official sports betting partner of the NHL, and it's just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Don't miss out on any Stanley Cup props for next season or divisional props. So to win the Western Conference, your Kings are plus 1,000, right behind the Oilers, Stars, Avalanche, Knights, Predators, and Canucks after the free agency period. So if you want to think the Kings win the Western Conference, plus 1,000. So get your bets in here. And if you're new to DraftKings, you can check us out. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. That's code THPN for all new customers to get $150 in bonus bets. When you just bet $5 only on DraftKings, the crown can be yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, www.800gambler.net. Or in New York, call 8778-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for those in gambling needs. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino Resort in Kansas. 21 age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. So that's throwing down some bets there, guys. The Kings bet on the trade there, but they're also betting on some of the free agent aspects here that came in July 1st. If you want a funny reaction to the first signing, please go view our live thing with Russell. I believe it's 57 minutes in, and you'll get quite a laugh. Joe.
Well, there was another trade the Kings made, though. Before the draft, they traded Carl Grundstrom for Kyle Burroughs.
That's right.
So we didn't talk about this. Was obviously before the draft, so before the Tanner Jeannot deal. It was before, obviously, free agency. probably not much to really talk about here, especially post free agency, because I think before free agency, I was getting a little nervous that Kyle Burroughs might be our left defenseman. And I'll be honest, kind of as I sit here today, I kind of wish Kyle Burroughs was a left shot defenseman on the third pair. But I don't know, just any quick thoughts on Burroughs. It seems like he, is going to be depth, which is good. He's got history playing both sides. I think Rundstrom was a little undervalued here, but I get it if he just has worn out his welcome, for lack of a better term. But I guess there's nothing wrong with kind of veteran depth. And I guess the question is, do you think it's him or Englund that is in Ontario?
I think Englund gets waived. I think he's the one that's in Ontario.
That makes sense.
I wouldn't be surprised if Englund gets traded. Curtis McDermott was traded for a 4th-round pick. Let's be serious here. And there's value in players like that. We'll talk about Edmundson because we'll get there. But I mean, their teams see value in players like that, and I think McDermott's been traded twice. Actually,
he has. He was traded to the Devils last year.
To the Devils, yeah. But
okay.
So I think it's.
I just wanted to make sure we threw that in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Burroughs. I like Burroughs though, because I mean, you look at he played over 20 minutes, right, for the Sharks a night. I think it was what it was relied upon. I mean, Sharks were a dumpster fire. They got the first overall pick for a reason, so the guy can eat some minutes in and play comfortably on both sides. I think he's a jigsaw piece that the team could use. The team was healthier than I thought last season on the blue line, and so maybe if there's some injuries and everything like that, he could be relied upon to play some decent minutes. Not going to break the bank on any statistical category, but could be reliable for the bottom pairing.
He was fairly steady on an abysmal San Jose team last year. It's
if you're looking for depth, I mean, Clark and Spencer penciled in to the defensive spots at this point.
Oh, don't get me riled up. I might have to pour myself a whiskey if Clark's in the AHL again.
No, I don't. I don't think so. I think like even Blake, I think mentioned it too, that this was pretty much a depth move. I'm pretty sure he had said that. I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure he said that we're gonna have like 2 young guys in the lineup. We want to have like some experienced depth. So yeah, I would be very surprised if Burroughs is playing over either of those players.
Let's get into the super chat. Nick Vroman coming in here with a $5 holla. What's going to make or break this year are the kids, or what is going to make or break this year are the kids. Hope they commit to them. Thanks for the show, fellas. So there's more of a comment than a question, but, they signed Foegele, they signed Turcotte, they signed Akil Thomas. They have Clark hopefully there, and then Jordan Spence maybe playing a full season. So that's 5 right there. We talk about getting value out of the contract. A couple of these players have to exceed their value of their contract by quite a bit for the Kings to make some noise. Is it make or break? Are the kids that are going to be the people that make or break the season and maybe get us out of the first round?
Yes, 100%. That's who they're relying on. This is a transition year, it feels like, in LA. And I wanted to get to this. I was going to get to this afterwards, but I'm just going to get to it now. I think it's time. Okay. That live show that I did, I mean, afterwards and then free agency that we were doing it. I mean, you think about all the things that happened. I mean, we kind of all got our hopes up for Stamkos, Gensel, whatever. I mean, rightly so. You look at what this team needs. Those
Nikolai Ehlers is still alive.
Those are exactly the type of players that this team needs. But I mean, from everything that we've heard from Rob Blake, every time we talk to him, he's mentioned Akil Thomas, Alex Turcotte, Brian Clark like 3 or 4 times every time we talk to him. So yes, this is going to be a year where they rely on the kids. So I think it's best that maybe we all temper our expectations for this year, which is just a terrible thing to say, given all the things that have transpired over the last couple of years with this team, and a terrible thing to think that the GM that has put them in that situation is still going to continue to be the GM through this season. So for me, the expectations that this team is any better after the moves that they made over the year, no, not at all. 100% no. The expectation to think that this team is probably worse than what they are last year, I don't think so. I think this team can be about the same. I mean, they were a 99-point team with Victor Arvidsson playing only 18 games. I mean, Andreas Englund played 82. Trevor Lewis played 82. I mean, they were just running 11-6 sometimes because they couldn't even fill a whole lineup. So I think they can be kind of floated about the same. So you look at some of the players that are kind of coming into this lineup this year in kind of some sick way. I'm really excited for this next season. I've been waiting for Alex Turcotte for 5 years. I've been waiting for Akil Thomas for a few years. I've been waiting to see Brant Clark for a year and a half. So now we're going to get all that. And they're replacing players like Carl Grunstrom, Blake Lizotte, Matt Roy. Do I think they'll be better than those replacements? Maybe some of them, but I mean, who knows? But even then, I'm excited to see what those young players bring to the lineup because we've been talking about play the kids for, it seems like, forever. And I feel like this year is finally the year that we're actually going to get it. So whether or not that brings improvement to this team, who knows? I wouldn't sit here and say that they're going to be able to beat the Edmonton Oilers in round 1 of the playoffs again. But overall, I'm looking forward to it because I want to see what Brant Clark can do. I want to see what Alex Turcotte can do in a full season if he stays healthy. I'm excited to see what Akil Thomas can do. Alex Laferriere, he's only 22 years old. He's barely old. He's the 3rd youngest player on this team, and he just played a full 82-game season. I'm excited to see that sophomore jump that he takes and if he can take one. So for me, I'm looking forward to this season. I think it's going to be a very exciting one.
Russ may be right. I don't think, though, that Rob Blake would agree with him. I don't think that he would agree in calling this a reset. I think he's trying to get out of the first round. I think he thinks this is the way to do it. To back it up for a second, I was not pinning any hopes on Stamkos or Gensel. I saw the Kings were linked. Would have been cool.
I mean, look at their contracts, too. Look what they got.
Yeah, not just... I was more in the line of if they can add a couple of mid forwards, which they did basically, but also I was thinking maybe more of a scorer like a Tyler Toffoli, who the Kings were rumored to maybe be in the running for, something like that with a little bit more scoring punch and a cheaper lefty 3. I thought that was the route that would make the most sense. Obviously, they didn't. To go to the question, I don't think the kids are. Here's my take. I don't think the kids can break the year, but I think the kids can make the year. I don't think they can break it because I think there's nothing they they're kids. Their expectations are going to be what they are. Obviously, Byfield, you expect to take another step. Laferriere's got a year under his belt, expect to take another step. Turcotte, Thomas, this will be their first full go at it. Spence, we'll see. I don't know how they plan on doing it. If Spence is going to be RD2, which I would do, and Clark RD3, whatever, but hopefully they have good years. But they are going to be hamstrung by their weaknesses, which is the left side of the blue line. They're going to struggle. They're probably going to be, I agree, Russ, they'll probably be right around the same team caliber-wise, probably right around that 3rd spot in the Pacific, depending on
Draftkings has the odds as 4th in the Pacific right now.
Okay. Who's the 3? Do they have Vancouver ahead still?
Vancouver, Vegas, and Edmonton are the top 3. So in order, Edmonton, Vegas, Vancouver, then the Kings.
Okay. I mean,
and there's quite a bit of jump after that. So the Kings are plus 500, and then the Kraken are plus 1,600.
I won't argue that necessarily. I mean, I think LA. I mean, hey, we all doubted Vancouver last year, and I still think LA can be probably just as good, if not better than Vancouver. But again, I don't know. But regardless, I think their issues of not being able to play a bit more of a progressive game are going to be hamstrung because they don't have the players to do that enough of them to do that on the back end. I think is still a problem. So I think the kids can make the season if Clark is that good, if Spence takes that step, if Byfield and these kids, if Turcotte and Thomas are healthy, if that all clicks, if those all hit, then they can make the season. They can make it an exciting season and maybe get past the first round. Yeah, I think that is possible. So I appreciate the contribution from Nick.
Yeah, thanks.
My thought is I don't think they can break it, but I do think they can make it.
who's the number one? I'll answer first, but I think the number one rookie, or not rookie, but young kid who's going to make this year is LaFerriere. Because I feel like he's going to be relied upon to play first line minutes.
He could be
for a majority of the season.
Mm-hmm.
They tried it last year. He's going to have that second year jump. If they're relying on Byfield to play center, who's playing, LW1? It's going to probably be LaFerriere, and he's going to have a hell of a sophomore jump to make that first line competitive. You look at Byfield, his possession metrics were off the charts, had about 60 points. That's going to be a huge jump for LaFerriere to fill those shoes. I don't really feel like, you look at Turcotte and Thomas are going to have some, sway on the lines. I know, Foegele could play first line, but I feel like LaFerriere could have a chance to play up there a little bit. But I think he's probably the guy because freshman to sophomore year jump, I think we already know what Jordan Spence is. If he can get consistent time at 20 plus minutes, his skill set's just going to amplify the stat quotient. The wild card is Clark, in my opinion. I know he's a great player, but are they going to unleash the dragon? Are they going to let the peacock fly, or are they going to ask him to play defense on the third line? So I just think it's going to be usage and the players. I think if they allow Clark to just be him and run the power play too and play second line minutes, it'll be Clark. But I have a feeling they trust LaFerriere, and it has to be him taking that big jump.
Yeah, I think with LaFerriere, I'm interested to see how he does a full year away from PLD, because those two, they were together the entire year, it felt like, and they just never really clicked. And for some reason, they just kept on sticking them together. So I know, and I looked at some of the playoff metrics. I mean, LaFerriere was one of the better forwards on the team. I mean, you look at his metrics away from Dubois, ranked around the top 5 in terms of the Kings forwards. So you know me, I've not hit it. I'm one of the bigger LaFerriere proponents ever since he got drafted for the Kings and since he went to the first development camp for them. So I'm still very high on the player.
Big fan of that last.
Yeah, definitely. So I think he's got a lot of confidence. I think when you come in for your first year, it's kind of like eye-opening. I mean, you play a full season in the NHL as a 21-year-old. There's a lot of adjustment to get used to. But now you come in, you know everybody, you know the training camp. You've been to every arena because you played 81 games. But so I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to sit here and say that he can produce as a first line winger. I wouldn't put him there. But if that's where he has to start, let's see how he starts there.
I disagree a little bit in that I thought him and PL did play pretty well together. I mean, you look at his scoring chances, and he was consistently, LaFerriere that is, in getting scoring chances in the slot area, and a lot of that's because he was getting passes in the slot area from PL, and he just didn't bury them. And it's like, now I look at this as he's got a full season under his belt of timing, spacing, knowing the speed of the game, and a full off season knowing like I'm going to be in the NHL next year. So I agree that, Brandon, this could be a year where we see Alex LaFerriere pop, because whether he plays with Kopitar, whether he plays with Jeannot and Moore, or whether he plays with Byfield, Fiala, there's somebody that's going to be able to create for him. And if he does improve, and we saw it with guys like Trevor Moore and Carl Grunstrom's had a good shot in the past too, and improving their shot. Kempe is a big one that improved his shooting and his shot in the past in the offseason. If LaFerriere is able to have some improvement like that with his shot, yeah, we can see somebody. We can see a breakout from LaFerriere.
And people got to remember, I mean, I've seen some people in the chat talk about like writing him off and saying he's not. He's younger than Alex Turcotte and Akil Thomas. He's a 22-year-old, and he just played a full year in the NHL. We're talking about playing the kids. He's got to be considered a kid still. This isn't a player that we just don't know what his potential is. We haven't even seen it yet. So,
I still think there's a player here. I really do, and I get it. Like it's not the sexiest thing that he may be first line winger, but I don't hate it. Like within the context of what the Kings have, I don't hate it.
It's better than Jeannot, right? We can make that agreement.
That is comfortably yes.
Tap of the morning to you on that agreement. Let's get into the signings here. Big signings. We were waiting almost an hour on the live stream, and then the news came over. Earthquake in Los Angeles. Oh, no, that was the signing of Joel Edmundson. signed 4 years.
Can we start with the positive? Can we?
No, we're gonna get into
Okay.
it.
Everybody wants to hear what you got to say about this, Joe. This is going to be your time to shine.
We're an hour, and I should probably get to our other ad read if you're going to be talking for an hour about left shot deep. But we'll wait. We'll wait for smooth sack summer until after Joe talks about the left hand D here. Joel Edmundson signed for a 4-year, $15.4 million contract with a modified no trade clause. The dagger in the back there.
Joe, did you hear that? Joel Edmundson signed for a 4-year, $15.4 million
4 years
with a modified no trade clause. I just wanted to make sure Joe heard that.
Mother effing years.
17-year-olds are going to be graduating college when Joel Edmundson gets done with the LA Kings. Everybody wants to hear Joe. Everybody's been talking about on Twitter. Joe, you were anti-Edmundson in the trade talks. You were glad that he went to another team. You didn't think the ghost of Joel would come out and reap once more. But then again, it did happen. Joe, the floor is yours.
I don't even know where to start. So, like, Sunday night, I slept horrible. I woke up, little did I know I was getting sick. But for a second, I saw it wasn't until that morning, Monday morning.
You were getting Joel Edmundson. That's what you were. It was
subconsciously must have been happening because it wasn't until the morning when I saw Russell. I don't know if you tweeted it or whatever, made a comment, and I read the Elliot Friedman about Los Angeles being linked to Joel Edmundson. I was like, oh, this never crossed my radar. That's on me. I should have known. Rob Blake's MO, big and slow. So I should have known because they've doubled down and now tripled down and not quadrupled down on something that we already know doesn't work. Okay. And what was genuinely stunning is when I saw, Joel Edmundson linked to the LA Kings. Like, okay, brace yourself. In no way did I ever think we were going to see a 4-year deal. That is absurdity in the year 2024 that a general manager that's getting paid in US dollars can hand out a contract of 4 years to a player who has objectively been one of the worst defensemen in the NHL, at least for the last few years. If you want to try to tell me, I had somebody on Twitter arguing with me earlier that the J Fresh cards don't count because they only show the last 3 years. What about 6 years ago? First of all, I don't know why that's relevant with a 25-year-old Joel Edmundson, but I got the J Fresh cards from 6 years ago. He sucked then too. I mean, I'm sorry, but I have a really hard time wrapping my head around this. We went through this with Alex Edler, who is at the tail end of his career. He did his thing, but the Kings were mistaken thinking that they lost to Edmonton because they were outmuscled or weak. So they went and they go and get Andreas Englund. Clearly not good enough. And they once again are fooled. Now we're too soft. We're too soft. So they go and get Joel Edmundson. You don't get much bigger and stronger than Andreas Englund, but I guess Edmondson's got a couple inches and 10, 15 pounds on Englund. But you essentially paid 4 years, $3.8 million per for Englund's clone, more or less. He can't. We talked about all year. What did the Kings struggle with efficiently? Getting pucks out of their zone. He can't do it. And this idea that he's going to help Brandt Clark. How? How's he going to help Brandt Clark when Brandt Clark tries to go D to D and he's going to give it to Edmundson who whips it around the wall? Or when Clark goes to peel off for a D to D pass to help get the puck out of the zone and Joel Edmundson just whacks it around the wall. The thing to keep in mind with a player like Edmundson or Englund or these kind of defensive defensemen, right, that people say, well, they're low risk. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Here's what's so frustrating with that is you see players, and we talked about this, I think, during the playoffs. You see Darnell Nurse or Cody Ceci just whack the puck out of the zone. That's not a good play, guys. That is not a good play because it just goes to the other team in the neutral zone. That's a giveaway. So just because the fact he didn't make like the glaring turnover, the 1 time out of 10 that maybe a skill player will make, the other, he's just whacking pucks around, and the Toronto Maple Leafs got him. He stunk in Toronto. I'm sorry, like people should be pissed about this, and it's not Joel Edmundson's fault. He's going to come in and he's going to work hard. It sounds like he's a great dude, a great locker room guy. It's obviously never anything. Same thing as I said with England. It's nothing's ever personal, nothing like that. But for God's sake, if this is the evaluation of talent, whether it's Rob Blake, and I don't care what Rob Blake says, by the way, guys, we're all going to hear the same crap. We needed to get bigger. We needed to Okay. How much bigger of England can you get? Because you didn't get a guy that can move pucks either. So what's the point of this? But I don't want to hear from Blake. I don't want to hear from Hiller. I want to hear from the guys that were in those rooms making those decisions. I want to hear from the analytical team. Genuinely, I know we're never going to hear this. I want to know what they thought of this deal. If they were on board with it, and if they see something in this that no other smart team sees, or if they were like, okay, guys, we make suggestions, you do you. But the fact that his metrics,
because everybody says that Jeannot is the smartest guy in the room. He leads the scouting, and that includes NHL scouting groups.
So right? I think he does more amateur
that I don't know.
He's the head of all scouting, and that includes pro scouting.
But the thing is too, his defensive metrics have not been very good either. It's not as if like, this is a steady stay-at-home defensive defenseman, but he's just not much offense. No. His defensive metrics are very, very poor across the board. So like, if it's like the Moneyball quote, if he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? If he's a good defenseman, why doesn't he defense good? And to wrap this all up, you didn't just sign the England clone. You signed him for 4 years. 4 years, Randon. He's here for. That is astonishing. A 4-year deal. The guy's he's going to be 31. He's not. And defensemen like this, they don't age all that well. Anyways, he can't stay on the ice. He hasn't played over 60 games but once in the last 4 or 5 seasons, my recollection. So what are we doing? And in the words of Dmitry Filipovich from the PDO cast, he started his question with the LA Kings with, quote, what on earth are the LA Kings doing? And to paraphrase, he went in to talk about how 3 years ago, the LA Kings were one of his most favorite teams to watch, up-and-coming roster, a bunch of young kids. He was so excited about them. Fast forward to last year, he goes, I hated watching the Kings last year. That was terrible hockey. He goes, and I don't see how it gets any better this year. And he's 100% right. Now,
Joel's never played over 69 games. I just looked it up, ever in his career.
I'm just at a loss to think that it didn't work with Edler. It didn't work. Then they went and got Gavrikov, and then they paired him with, and then they went and got Gavrikov on the left, and then England on the left. So they're big on the left. And to think they just need to replace one big guy with another big guy, and they think that's the answer. Whoever's making the calls in this organization, I've seen some people in the chat, and I've seen people been tweeting at me about Bergevin. Maybe. But Rob Blake's the one that's got to sign the papers. So he's the one where everything's directed at from my end, because it has to be.
Well, that leads us great into this $20 holler from Sock to Me Cake. I think the acquisitions of both PLD and Edmundson scream Mark Bergevin all over it.
Maybe.
Is he causing Blake to make these bad decisions?
Maybe. And I know I've kind of rambled here because, to be honest with you guys, I've had a really hard time to collect my thoughts in any sort of court.
You've had a rough day.
Because this is just, here I am trying to be and I forget his name. I'm going back to Moneyball again to find me evaluations on 3 players. And he comes in with a list of 50. And I'm here trying to unearth the Eric Brandstroms and the Oliver Shillingtons and all of these guys, and this is, you're going after the same old. What year is it, Rob Blake? What year are you living in? Because it isn't 2024.
I think I don't know who's in his ear. Obviously, all GMs wait and listen to the people they bring in, but are you bringing in guys that are echo chambers? Are you bringing in guys that challenge your thought process? We'll never know that. But what Joe is saying is like, like you're hiring a clone. You're hiring a guy that is objectively the same player for more money. So you weren't getting positive
A lot
output.
more money, yeah.
You were getting positive output out of England. You were getting immeasurables, according to Hiller.
Jim Hiller.
And then now you're paying the same player or a fraction, a skosh, a Salt Bay drop of a difference in player for 4 years and 3 times the amount of money. It's not an asset thing. It's not a Joel Edmundson thing. It's for me, it's a, what are you doing with your money? What are you doing with the asset? What are you doing with the time and effort? How are you scouting? And I just think that you look at the way this team plays and how Rob Blake wants them to play. Kevin Fiala is an outlier on this team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Kempe is an outlier. If you want an aggressive forechecking team that plays 2-1 hockey, you traded for the wrong guy in Kevin Fiala. And I don't believe that because I think Kevin Fiala is a hell of a player. But you don't bring in a Kevin Fiala to play 2-1 hockey. And so when I thought that move was made, okay, hey, we're going to open it up. We're going to let the cylinders fly. But now you have Nos in a 1967 Shelby Mustang, and you're driving 25 mile an hour in a school zone with all the rest of the moves that you're making here. I don't understand it either. I don't understand. Like, Jeannot's a fine player, and we need grit. Great. Awesome. Forward group, great. But I think he's going to be a second or third line guy when he's a fourth line guy. Now you're getting the same exact player in England who only had played 32 games, I believe, in one season in the National Hockey League, played all 82. And another move that we're going to talk about later, Trevor Lewis, like, what are we bringing these guys for? Do we want to get better? Like, you literally had so many left shot defensemen signed for 1 year and $1 million or 1 year and $2 million that are not even objectively better, obviously better than Joel Edmundson. And you throw out this contract. I have a feeling he's bidding against himself.
No, that I don't. So that I will push back on. I do think, guys, there was genuine competition for Joel Edmundson. I think there was at least 2 or 3 other teams in for Joel Edmundson. So, guys, because old school minded GMs, they can't get it. They can't help themselves. They can't do it. They see these big hulking defensemen that may or may not be able to skate, that may or may not be able to stick handle. They can't help themselves. Forget everything else. They can't. Meanwhile, Colorado, what did they? I mean, I know they ended up losing in playoffs, but they went out and got Sean Walker last year. They're the ones that signed Eric Brandstrom to a $900,000 deal. You see teams like that, smart teams that have been powerhouse teams lately, looking to make deep runs, make moves like that. And what does he bring that England didn't?
Mm-hmm.
Is my question. That's like, if there's one thing that I want to know from Rob Blake, it's what does he bring that England didn't? And that not only that, but
that's worth $2.8 million.
That's worth 3 times more over the next 4 years. What is it? Now, the only thing I can lean a little bit to is his looking at last year. His penalty kill metrics last year were okay in Washington.
Do you mean a number 2 penalty kill in the nation? Is that what we need to improve on?
Right. And the penalty kill is not going to be top 2 this year, just because by nature, I mean, that stuff I think is a little fluky. So
Trevor Lewis is back.
That's going to go back. So what I want to know, after being gaslit by the organization and their media about how important Andreas Englund was to this team, what is Joel Edmundson bringing that Andreas Englund didn't?
Mm-hmm. It's just funny because, like, the Kings went I mean, all last season, the Kings were looked at as the laughingstock across the league with the PLD move. And then they found a way to get rid of it. So Kings fans are thinking, you go into this free agency thinking, oh, man, we got some flexibility. We got rid of this disdain that was maybe haunting our season going forward and the future going forward with PLD, who just didn't work out. And they go out and make a move and become a laughingstock across the nation again. I mean, when that move comes in, you just looked at everybody that was just like Jay Fresh, like Rona, all these analytic people that are just like, I mean, Jay Fresh's line was he's a defenseman that doesn't move the puck. It's like, how is that going to solve? And I think the worst part about this whole move is that this is a player that you're going to tie your best prospect to. You're arguably the best defensive prospect in the NHL. You're gonna pair him to Joel Edmundson and Brent Clark together. We just saw what happened with Jordan Spence and Andreas Englund for an entire year. Look at the metrics from them separated. Jordan Spence, that was his ball and chain. Like, when you take Jordan Spence away from Andreas Englund, he was one of the best defenders in the league at some of his metrics. And now all of a sudden, you tied your Brent Clark to a player who's got worse metrics than Englund and Edmundson. So I mean, it's like when you try to find like positive.
You're killing my boy, Russ. You're killing my boy.
When you try to find positive spins out of it, it's like Joe, we've talked about it on here, and you've said it multiple times. Is players that like Edmundson that come over here, they improve, their numbers improve,
yes,
because of the system,
the structure,
play.
Right?
And we could see that happen. We could end up seeing that happen with Edmundson.
Sure.
But it's probably not going to be a dramatic improvement. He's never going to be like he's a 31-year-old. Like, he's not going to all of a sudden become this like great like defender that's going to play top 4 minutes or should never play top 4 minutes for the Kings. I mean, look at his metrics for the Oilers or the Leafs last year. He was terrible in the playoffs for them. Like 43% expected goal share, and that's crazy on a team like the Leafs when you go up against Boston. It's just wild.
Yep.
So, and I saw people were making the Scuderi comparison. Like, get the F out of here, bro. Like, stop it. Like, Scuderi was a way better defender for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That won Stanley Cups for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? Like, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, like, the only thing I'll buy with Edmundson is that, like, if I can find any sort of positive in this, and it's like, it has nothing to do with the on-ice product, it's that he's going to be a great locker room guy.
Sure.
He's going to be a guy that's going to build character into a room that probably had terrible character last year and a lot of kind of up in the air stuff with this elephant in the room in Dubois. So he's definitely going to help out there, especially when you have a player like Clark who likes to get in the mix a lot. Like, that's a known fact. I was watching.
I want him in the mix.
No, I'm just saying, I saw highlights of a charity game that Brent Clark was playing in, and he's getting face washed by another guy. I'm like, all right, chill, Clarky. Like, let's relax a little bit. But yeah, so when you have a presence like that in the locker room, maybe kind of rein him in a little bit in that sense, that might help. But as far as the on-ice stuff, this is just one of the worst decisions that Rob Blake has made on top of a multitude of bad decisions that he's made so far in his tenure.
And I don't want to come across as saying, oh, well, now we like England. No. I want to know the question. I want the answer to the question of what is the difference between the two. Like, I'm here for an upgrade on Andreas Englund, right? And if you want to tell me that the Kings decided to trade Grunstrom for Burroughs, and they were going to play Burroughs as lefty, Englund as 7D, and they add Foegele, Jeannot, and they use that 3.8 on, find another middle six forward. Sure, whatever. Pick a guy, just for sake of conversation. Okay, I don't like it because I've made my issues with the lefty, but that's better than this. It's what is the difference between these two that makes one 3 times the cost and 4 times the term? It is unacceptable. There's no way there should be somebody that's making decisions at the professional level signing a contract like this. Now, if this was like I said, I was bracing for like 1 year, maybe like a similar 2-year deal for Gavrikov. He's going to get too much money. He's probably going to, and I wouldn't have liked it. I probably would have been just as mad, to be honest with you, because I just think we're because that, to me, what it tells me, it's also a message that tells me the organization doesn't get it, because yes, I would love it if you could have a bunch of guys that were 6'4" that could zip the puck around. Who wouldn't want that?
Mervar is in the organization, and he
I know.
played just fine. I don't understand it.
Has been hyped up every time he plays too.
In the idea that they lost to Edmonton because they were pushed around. Get the hell out of here. Who pushed around Andreas Englund? So now wait a minute. So now Edmundson is not going to get pushed around, but Englund, the guy that we were told all last season was needed, did get pushed around. So now Edmundson is not going to get pushed around. So that's what's going to get us over the hump. That is a load of crap that we're being sold, and don't buy it. Okay. It's a load of crap. The Kings couldn't beat Edmonton because they couldn't keep up with them. They couldn't skate with them, and they couldn't get pucks out of their zone. That's the getting pushed around was probably like third or fourth or fifth on that list. Okay, there's bigger problems. You want to tell me that they were soft, they need to be harder. I buy that, which is why, again, you can sell me on the Jeannot deal if he's played in the right spot. I'm there with those people. You're not selling me if you got half your decor that can't get the puck out of the zone. Hey, that's on you. That's on you, the decision makers, and that's on Rob Blake for not being able to construct a competent defense score. Now, we'll see what happens because you've got now Jordan Spence that's going to potentially be the one that slides up into the Matt Roy role, and Brant Clark obviously in the lineup. And I think the idea is probably, well, what do you mean? We got these two. What else do you need?
Yeah.
Like, you need your D partner. Let me ask you guys, I tweeted this out the other day. Like, if you're Brant Clark or Jordan Spence or any young defenseman in the league, do you want a guy that, hey, I need to make an outlet pass, right? Or maybe you need to go D to D. Do you want that guy to be Andreas Englund or Joel Edmundson? Or do you want it to be somebody that's like, okay, I know I'm confident I can get this guy the puck and he's going to make a play with it. There's a reason Mikey Anderson's LD1. Like, again, I've said I don't think he's LD1 on a lot of NHL teams, but he's LD1 on the Kings. But that said, he's LD1 top 4 caliber lefty because he's a defensive defenseman who skates well. Not that big, by the way, folks. But you know what else he can do? He can move the puck. He's not inefficient, or he's not allergic to the puck like Gavrikov tends to struggle with, and then Englund was on a whole other level, and Edmonton's on a whole other level. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for these young players to have not a quote unquote physical presence to quote unquote protect them, but have a player who can be capable with the puck? And I'm not talking it's got to be like this offensive, like ignore the defense. You mentioned Jacob Moverari. There's other guys that, we've talked about on this show at length that are defensive defensemen. That's perfectly fine as long as you can be okay and comfortable with the puck and look to make a play. And instead, Jordan Spence had Andreas Englund last year. He's on his own. Any play that's made from the back end has to be done by Jordan Spence. Any play that Brant Clark makes now has to be done by Brant Clark. He's going to have to figure it out on his own because he can't make a play to his D partner. And my whole issue with this team, with the offense, isn't necessarily the forwards. You could make the case that there isn't a high-end forward to score that's still needed. I think we've talked about that. I kind of think they still need a scoring forward. We'll talk about Foegele. But, like, if you can't get the puck out, it doesn't matter. The Kings have talked about playing a more up-tempo system and more offensive game. That's fine. But if you've got a third of your defense group that can't really do it, it starts from the back end.
A third?
It starts from I think Mikey's capable. Like, he's not great.
He had a horrible season last year.
You're missing it. They're missing it. They don't get it. Whoever's making these calls, they don't get it. And if you can't transition well, if you can't get out of your own zone efficiently, how can you have a good offense?
I mean, for everybody that wanted this team to get tougher and to see more physicality, you got your wish. This is it. So don't go complaining when things don't go wrong that you need to see more physicality, because you got your wish with Jeannot and Edmundson in the lineup now. Like,
this team better forecheck the hell out of teams.
And
we better be the number one forechecking team in the.
I don't think they're going to, man. I think they're going to play the same style.
Yeah, the Kings they've been a rush offense team, right? They haven't been a big grinded on the forecheck type of team. Maybe that's because they haven't had the guys to do it, and now you Jeannot, and then you've got Foegele who's added in. So maybe, but their whole MO is just throw it into the neutral zone and then let your speedy wingers skate into it and go. And like I don't know, man. Like, I'm not going to say it's all doom and gloom where I think the team misses the playoffs or anything like that. Like, I don't think they're a better hockey team. I'm not going to sit here and say they're a worse hockey team. They're, again, I think that's within the margin of error that they can miss playoffs just because that's the way shit happens sometimes. But I'm not like predicting that they miss playoffs. Like, they could probably finish third in the division again. But what is your goal? What is your goal? I mean, because I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm the one that values defense and puck moving defense more than I should. I don't know, but the Kings haven't won a playoff round in 10 years now. They've 0 for 3 against the same team in Edmonton, who's just so much more skilled than them and so much faster. I get it. People say you're making a big deal out of LD3. It's not that big of a deal. They'll be fine. He doesn't play enough minutes.
LD2 or higher.
Yeah, it's right. He's getting paid. It's just the whole contract just doesn't make any sense. And the scary part of this is he's making just enough money that Gavrikov's contract's up after this year, and if he hits free agency. Is Joel Edmundson LD2? Now, I don't want to go too crazy or look so far ahead, but like this is
Noah right here. If people are saying move Gavi, are y'all saying Edmonton's 2 LD?
Right.
Throw up emoji?
It's just because I think he's like I don't hate the forward group. Like the forward group, it is missing a piece. I do think it's missing a legit score, but I don't hate the depth of the forwards, but man, oh man, I don't understand the logic behind this defense. I just
remember
deflating. It's deflating.
Remember when people were complaining about Sean Durzi playing the left side and his defensive issues?
Yes.
Good for Sean Durzi making.
Yes, good on him. Now, listen, and I was somebody in that had wrote an article.
Sorry, Ross, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just...
No, you're good. That's pretty much what I was just saying.
I wrote an article last year, or whenever that was now, about the struggles of Durzi playing on his left side. He was more or less a first-year player, really, playing on his left side in a top 4 role. And I noted in the article, like, it hasn't been bad. Like, metrics-wise, it's fine, but there's a little quirkiness to it. And I remember at the time, the conversation was so much around Jacob Chychrun. And my thought was, go get Chychrun and keep Durzi on the left side, but play him on the third pair with Walker. That I was fine with Durzi on the left side in a lesser a role, but I thought it was a lot to ask of him to play that left side in a top 4 role. But he handled it pretty well. And he was also hamstrung just because of the system that they played. He was a bit structured. Like he couldn't do what he probably would have been more capable of doing too. So I don't know, man. I feel deflated. I feel I know Russ, and I think that's a good point. And maybe I should start thinking like that with all the kids about getting more excited. But when I had this signing, I felt like I got punched in the gut, and it's like I'm not at all excited about this season because I can already see how it ends. And again, maybe I should stop that thought process and think more about, hey, it should be fun watching these kids kind of evolve and see who grows into a player. But it just reeks of a lack of understanding of modern hockey.
See, Joe, I've moved to the acceptance phase of
I'm not there yet.
Grief.
Wherever anger is, I'm still there.
That's the second one, but
what a fan!
You still got a ways to go, buddy. It gets better.
What a fan brought up on Twitter was this. Not only is this badass as management, our strength was the right side of the D. You look at Sean Walker, got another contract.
Yeah.
You look at Matt Roy, got a massive contract. who we should have traded for a
Good for
first round
him.
pick at the deadline. You have Jersey, who got a contract. The right side of the defense was this juggernaut. We traded Brock Faber, who's probably going to get a 7-year, 7x8 type of deal. Like, we had all these juggernauts, and what do we get from that? We got Kevin Fiala. We got to pay away with Helge Grans the
Peterson
Kyle Peterson deal. We have a PLD who's no longer on this team. We let Walker walk for nothing. Like, we have a right D in our franchise who signed probably $20 million per year worth of contracts this offseason for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, asset management there. Like, what are we talking about here? Like,
the Jersey one hurts me the most, man. That's just
Me too.
You saw so much, like, I mean, they've been pressing like culture and like locker room, like positivity and all this like to us. And it's like Sean Jersey was the perfect teammate. Look at everything. Like he's going to be the captain of the
Utah for sure.
Probably
at some point.
You traded him away for a 2nd-round pick. That's what I'm talking about. Like that's the terrible move. Like Velarde, whatever. Like I that's a bad one too. But like the Jersey one, that's gonna haunt me for so long because he's so good. I don't think he's a top flight defender. But you look at all the other stuff that he brought to the team. I mean, he was doing yoga on the ice with Gavrikov. He was bringing coffee every time they came to the rink with Jeannot. Like they were living together. That was a young player, and he was fighting. Like that was a young player that you could have built your defensive core around, and you just kind of threw him away because you had all these right shot defenders, and you were too afraid to play him on the left side for some godforsaken reason. Even though, like Joe said earlier, his metrics with Matt Roy that year, they were the best defensive pair on the team, and you just kicked him to the curb. Should we get to the positive side of this free agency? I feel like we've been so doom and gloom. So I feel like we should get to the
because there was a positive.
It's so funny because it's like such like a.
But you know what's positive for us more than anything else in our off season is Manscaped's deal right now, because Smooth Sack Summer is the epitome of all summer. And ladies and gents, it's my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. We're playing the summer sun. Make sure you're groomed from pubes to the bum. Thanks to your friends here at Manscaped, so that way you can take this season with the smoothest yet. Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool and looking hot. Join 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer to get 20% off plus free shipping when you look at manscaped.com. Code THPN. That's code THPN. Summertime and the trimming is easy. I don't know about you boys, but I don't want to be around my lady friend, worrying about what's going on downstairs. So I just trim it up. Use Manscaped's lawnmower to get my business done. Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare for that summer bod. You're talking about little dad bod. You don't have to have a dad bod downstairs because Manscaped's got you covered. Every man knows how scary it can be going for the close shave below the belt. That's why Manscaped has all my sensitive areas ready to go inside this package. Their 5th generation trimmer includes 2 interchangeable Next skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, or the foil blade for going smooth as Joe's head, whenever your heart desires. We all have the dual LED headlights providing contrast to multiple skin tones, providing 3 length setting combs. Oh, did I mention the trimmer has waterproof too? Beach, lake, shower. The razor has whatever it needs to devour with the strongest pubes. Now that you have the perfect haircut, Manscaped is looking for the liquid formations that keep the freshness, even at the hottest temperatures, the hottest summer barbecues. That crop soother, aftershave lotion, crop preserver, anti-chafe ball deodorant. One touch for your sack, you'll never go back. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts with the Performance 5.0 package. That's the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. More wet products? Say no more. Manscaped's got you covered even more for this deal. Get on this deal. Code THPN. New buff bundle. All you need to know is the summer is a breeze and that they're giving you that silicone scrubber and the body wash free of charge. So get on it. 20% off, free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code THPN at manscaped.com. Smooth sack summer. Boys, smooth sack summer. Let's get ready to go. Get in the game.
Love smooth sack summer.
Dude, it's my favorite summer.
Can I say too real quick? When this is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happens when a team and Rob Blake, everybody talked about how, look at the passion Rob Blake's showing about how uncomfortable we got to get now. But this is the crap that happens. He goes out and signs these type of players, and you overpay, not just sign, but you overpay for an Edmundson, and you overpay for a Jeannot. Now, again, I think Jeannot can be capable. And even if, like, whatever, that's is the problem, though, with this crap, with this, you know, it's culture. Winning. Winning is going to help. Okay, good players helps win. That's what's going to help the culture. So I can't. You sit there, you bang on the table about making things uncomfortable. We got to be uncomfortable and this, and there's an element of truth to that. But when you turn around and do what you've done here in this off season,
the only people that are uncomfortable are the fans right now.
You just don't get it. You don't get how teams win in this year. Like, you can't tell me that Joel Edmundson is what put you over the top against Edmonton. How you sell me on that?
Where?
Sorry, Joe. I was trying to hit a home run joke there.
Where did he get uncomfortable? Right? Like, if anything, he just dove face first into his comfort zone by signing Edmundson.
Well said.
That is his comfort zone. That's been a player that he's coveted. Like people have said, they've coveted this big defenseman for so long. If anything, him getting uncomfortable would be signing an Eric Brandstrom or an Albert Shillington. That would be him getting uncomfortable because that's a player they haven't tried to look for.
Everybody's going to get uncomfortable.
Vladimir Tarasenko.
Blake. Everybody's going to get uncomfortable except for the GM that's making these calls because he's going to fall back into his comfort zone. That's well said, Russ, going back to every GM from 20 years ago. I think that's absolutely right. And it's that's why when you hear this stuff, that's fine. It's all great coach talk and GM talk and presser talk. And it's a lot of times it's a load of crap because when you turn around and do stuff like this, it doesn't show me that you have any real direction as to what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know who knows do you know who knows what they're doing? Our fans. 83 strong in the chat. Please like and subscribe. You know, I don't want to hit another ad here, but we're going to throw it up here for 4th of July sale. We're discounting our t-shirts, giving you a little discount for 4th of July. So hit it up. $25 for the Let Kev Be Kev, sizes small through XXL, and $40 for the Trevor Moore and Kev combo deal. DM all orders to our buddy here, Russell Morgan.
43% like to watch ratio. Let's get that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Hit that like button.
Yeah. All your Sabermetrics fans, let's get it up here. Analytics. Sabermetrics. That's baseball. Man, I hate the A's. All right. Let's go to a new let's go to a new
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. 28 homers. All right, let's get to the number one signing of the season here. Mr. Warren Foegele, 3 years, $10.5 million. I was down on this signing, and then I looked at the metrics. I'm like, okay, all right. I see what you're cooking with. I see, you're using a little bacon grease. You're using a little salt and pepper. You're using a little hot sauce, a little olive oil, a little something. Because everything that you were doing before Rob Blake was raw chicken. And now we have some actually cooked food here on the table with Mr. Warren Foegele. I really like this. I really like this signing. I think the AAV is good. I think that his metrics are great for what the Kings want to do as far as stylistically. I think there's more in the can for him to produce in basic numbers, in goals and assists, if he's given more time on ice. So I really like this pick. We let Joe talk for over 2 hours. So Russ, what do you think about this signing?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was going to say, it's just like that Edmundson deal and this Foegele deal are like so far on the opposite ends of the spectrum for me. Like, I hate the Edmundson deal so much, but I love this Foegele deal so much. This is a player that I've coveted for so long for LA. When he was playing in Carolina, it just seemed like whenever he like whenever that team was humming, like Edmundson or Foegele was on the ice. I almost said Edmundson, man, they're terrible, but Foegele, like I think like some people have mentioned it too. Like I remember watching highlights, like ESPN or something like that. They talk about like, oh, like you see that 37 going down the ice, and it almost looks like 97. He almost looks like McDavid when he's going down the ice because the way he skates. But I mean, yeah, like I honestly think this is one of the better signings that Rob Blake has made in his tenure. To be honest with you, Foegele, you look at all those metrics that Randon mentioned, they're up there, man. And the thing, like one of the best things about him, and we talk about it sometimes too, maybe this is where I can argue that I think he could be a better player than what Arvidsson was in LA, is his availability. He's only missed 15 games in the last 3 seasons. This is a player that's always going to be there. He's going to, like you mentioned, Randy, he's got some speed. He's got some forechecking ability. He's got a little bit of grit to him too. So, man, like for me to hate that Edmundson deal so much, like it's crazy how much more I love this Foegele deal and why maybe this kind of gets me a little bit more excited for the season coming ahead.
Absolutely. He was one of my favorite. This is one of the reasons why I was so in on Edmonton, is I thought their depth was underrated, and Fogel's a big piece of that. I love this kid. Love how he plays. He flies. He's in the, I think, like 86th percentile in some of the edge stats when it comes to his skating speed and his speed bursts and stuff. Fun to watch player. Talk about this. This is what you talk about, a guy that's hard to play against. Warren Foegele is a pain in the ass to play against if you're a defenseman, because he's zipping down at you all the time. This is what makes you hard to play against. Not some guy that's going to hand out cross checks after you've scored a goal to put you on your back so you paid your price. But Foegele, I love it. I think you're right, Russ. I think this is a player that can fit in up and down the lineup. I think he's a decent shout to play first line next to Kopitar and Kempe. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And Randon, I think you have a great call out with his time on ice. Like, I think you could be looking at a player here. So last year he scored 20 goals. This was his best year. 20 goals, 21 assists. 17 of those goals came at 5-on-5. And he played just 12 minutes a night at 5-on-5 and just under 14 minutes a night, all strengths. And that was his career high. I think if you add a couple of minutes, you play him with Jeannot, or really any of the centers, Jeannot, Byfield, or Kopitar. If he gets more minutes, I think you can see him score 20 to 25 goals again. His metrics, his scoring chance metrics, courtesy of all 3 zones tracking, are very good, whether it's off the rush, whether it's on a forecheck. He's creative. He's a dual threat in the sense that he's finds himself in high danger areas for shots. He can make passes to high danger areas. I like so much of this signing, and to think he makes less money than Joel Edmundson is just fascinating. This is a good player. This is probably an underrated signing. I'm hesitant that I don't know that he's like the impact that they need, right? I think we were kind of hoping that, Toffoli maybe, a nice story, but Toffoli score, like he's a proven NHL goal scorer, right? I think there was guys that were like proven NHL goal scorers. Jeff Skinner's one that went to Edmonton, ironically. He's had his issues and he's got his warts as a player. NHL goal scorer. So
him and Victor Arvidsson on the same line with I'm trying to blank for Draisaitl.
Yeah,
that's going to be
Arvidsson going to Edmonton is a little bit of a stinger there too. But yeah, I'm with you, Russ. I don't think that this is like a huge drop off for Arvidsson. I don't know that it's the impact player they needed in the top 6, but I think this is a really good add to a forward group. Good depth, not even depth, but just like the versatility that he brings, can play a comfortable position, whether he's first line or third line. I think I really like this ad.
So I want to come in here and say this. I think that Warren Foegele, sorry, will play on the first line as much as I think LaFerriere has a chance to play on the first line. But I think the minutes is there to where you can he's probably the perfect complement on the first line for that thing, right? You look at the passer that Kopitar is, the goal scorer. They had Byfield do all the dirty stuff last year. Get in the corners, get the pucks, do that kind of thing, fly up the ice. I think Foegele could do that. And I also think that he could play down and play with Byfield and allow Byfield to be the distributor that he was in juniors and help him push that line with a goal scorer, whoever they find to play, whether it's Fiala or whatever. I think he's universal, and I really like this signing.
I'm with what I think it was Sai who mentioned it first in the chat, and some other people have kind of carried on top of it. Fiala, Byfield, Foegele sounds so much fun to me. I mean,
sure,
like you mentioned, Brandon, like with Foegele kind of do all the dirty area stuff. I mean, you have that with a player like, I mean, you don't really maybe have too much finishing on that line, but even then, like, I think those three together says like that spells a lot of fun for me.
It does.
If you're looking to get Byfield maybe a little bit more of a established presence to kind of help him out a little bit, since he's going to be transitioning back to center and it's not necessarily he's the winger anymore. You have Fiala and Foegele on the two ends. If that's your third line, and and this is where I kind of like find a little bit more excitement in this season. I'm not saying that they're going to be better, but this is where I find a little bit more excitement because I mean the third line last year was pretty much Dubois, Laferriere, and take your pick.
Yeah.
This year, if you have a third line of Fiala, Byfield, and Warren Foegele, that sounds pretty good to me.
I at least see and enjoy that you are firmly back on Byfield is going to be the third line center, Russ. I'm happy that you've come along and come full circle. I like that. I can see Foegele on any one of these lines. Like the way Victor Arvidsson worked, and Victor Arvidsson was a good playmaker. I think Fogel's an underrated playmaker too. Like I could see him be buzzing around with Moore and Jeannot just as well. So I really like the ad. I mean, I think what we've really hit here is, so the one thing we haven't really talked about, I should say, is Fogel's left-handed. They didn't add a right shot, like an impact right shot winger.
Power play is going to suffer for sure.
What's that?
The power play is going to suffer for sure.
So I don't know what they do there. I mean, I think Akil Thomas is an underrated power play asset. I doubt that they would use him there, but I think he can play there. I don't know if they'll give Laferriere the shot there, but so I think what this tells me is they still need a middle six at worst player, I think, because it's not Tanner Jeannot. He should be on the fourth line. Because otherwise, look at the roster is here then, right? That means Trevor Lewis is playing 82 games. So that can't happen. Because here's the thing, it's going to be what holds teams back is a lot of times it's going to be their weak links, right? And if you have Lewis, who is what he is, Jeannot, who is what he is, and Edmundson, and then Gavrikov's got his like flaws. There's a lot to overcome there. And I know a lot of people talk about Edmonton and they had their flaws and, Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci. And I'm right there with you guys. But you know what they got? They got freaking McDavid. And they got Draisaitl. They got legit game breakers. And they got Ekholm. And they got Bouchard. Yeah. It's not the same conversation. Like the Kings can't really afford.
One of these things are not like the other.
Yeah. The Kings can't afford to have weak links weighing them down because they don't have those stars to pull them out of it. The Kings are built on their depth, and that depth gets weak the deeper you go. Like, and it so far. So that's what worries me is their weak links are still their weak links, and I'm just not sure right now. Again, it's July 3rd, so plenty of offseason left, but there's not a lot of money to work with after we don't have a Byfield contract yet. Jordan Spence. So that 10-ish million that they have is going to be pretty much gone. So does anybody believe Samuel Fagimo's taking Trevor Lewis's spot? I don't know if I believe that. Arthur Kaliev hasn't been traded yet. I still assume he's going to be. Guys, like at the very least, we know Lewis is going to get 26 some odd games because he's going to get his 1,000th. Right now, you have a lineup that has Tanner Jeannot playing middle six. You have Alex Laferriere playing first line, and you have Trevor Lewis playing every 82 games. And you have Joel Edmundson playing 82 games. This is not a lineup that is going to do much at all in playoffs if it gets there. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah. It's an exciting lineup for the regular season because you get to watch the kids, but I agree. Like, it's like no one's expecting, like, for me, I'm not expecting this team to win the playoffs. There's no way. I mean, so like this for people like looking for them to sign.
You're
like
talking down a Norris Trophy, Brent Clark.
I mean, for people expecting them to make any more moves or trades or anything like that, I doubt it. I
doubt
highly doubt this. Like, this is, like Joe said, this is the lineup they're going to run with. Barring maybe I could see them signing maybe like a depth, like vet minimum center, because I mean, if Alex Turcotte or Akil Thomas is your fourth line, maybe you look for something like that, even though they've been okay in the past with running Trevor Lewis in that spot. So, yeah, this is the lineup you're going to have. I mean, it's going to be Kempe, Kopitar, Laferriere. Second or third line would take your pick. Fiala, Byfield, Foegele. More Deneau, Jeannot. And then you're going to have Turcotte, Thomas, and Lewis. Extra forwards going to be Sammy Fagemo. And we know the defensive core. So
I think Joe, your bet is almost locked that I'm gonna lose that 30-point bet with.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I don't know. I think I'm still high on Thomas. I think he can still get there.
It's just the situation. Yeah, I'm high on Thomas too.
Well, look at the power play too now. I mean, we're talking about a right shot power play or a right shot that might be needed on the power play.
Thomas can
right shot.
They needed a right shot last year, but they didn't make the move. So
that's what's so funny too, is like the whole like narrative that I'm pretty sure Hiller brought up when Arvidsson was coming back about how maybe the struggles on the power play are pointed to not having a right shot in the lineup, and then they don't even go out and get a right shot. So that's what's kind of funny. It's like, well, now what you're going to be your excuse if the power play doesn't produce because you didn't address that issue. I mean, maybe Laferriere can help out a little bit as a right shot just by default, but even then, like, I don't expect him to score 10 plus power play goals. Like, that's not going to happen.
I like Laferriere. I'm not sure that I see the creativity kind of like below the goal line, down low player where Velarde and Arvidsson spend a lot of time, but I don't know that his shot is where I need it to be for him to be in the bumper. But Akil Thomas can excel.
I disagree with you in the bumper thing.
I'll here for it. I'm here for the opportunity. I'm not like gonna be against it, but Thomas.
That was a goal scorer at Harvard. I think he's smart enough. He can maneuver around. I think Laferriere in the bumper, I think he do well.
I think it could. I just want to see his release, though, because Thomas, we've seen it. Thomas can shoot it, and Thomas can get it off quickly. Thomas has excelled in the bumper in Ontario. Like, I think there is an option there if they want to go that route. But to your point, Russ, that's kind of the route. They don't have a whole lot of other options to go with.
Other than that, though, I think you're looking at, which I don't think Hiller has the stones for it, would be Clark and Doughty on the first power play, Doughty on the half wall, Kempe on the shooter spot, and then put Kopitar down on the second power play to run the half wall on the left side there. I don't think there's the stones for that in the organization, but I think they need more right-handed shots, and I think it needs to come from the point, because if they allow all three right shots to play, those are all three your top offensive weapons from the point, which means if you do the standard power play, one guy is sitting, which is a travesty. Yeah. Whether it's Clark or Spence, you're taking one of the top 6 to 8 best offensive players in the team to not play. That's horrible. I think two defensemen have to play on one power. Whether it's the first power play or the second power play, they have to play all the defensemen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, let's just do it. Like, who's the first power play unit? You have Doughty, you have Kopitar, Kempe, Byfield, Fiala, right? First power play unit.
No,
you have Byfield.
In my eyes, Kopitar should be number 2 power play.
He's going to be on the first power play.
I understand. He should be.
Yeah. So you have second power play unit where I totally agree. Like, I think that should be like Brant Clark and Jordan Spence. Like, if they're not both those players are on the power play, they should be there.
You want to get nuts,
I like that. Both I think shots on the second power play. Okay, all right. I like that.
I can do that. You want to get nuts? And this
Let's
will
get
never
nuts.
happen. This is way too outside the box.
I'm podcasting from a foreign location, so I don't have my
Darcy
tinfoil hat.
Kemper
Otherwise, I'd be
playing
putting it
the
up.
Russ Tyler.
With Randon, put both Clark and Doughty on power play 1, but Clark is behind the goal line.
Okay.
Let's
Use
get
him as
nuts.
kind of like a forward hybrid situation.
He's
I like
smart
that.
enough for that.
He really is.
Get that puck on his stick. But to your point, though, I agree. I think I actually like Clark on the top and Spence on the left circle on that second unit. I think that could work really, really well.
Clark's a better shooter from the point, and I think Spence is a better passer, which would
I
lend
think
him
the
to
other
be a
thing-
better.
I think the
No,
opposite.
Spence is a
Better
better.
half-wall.
I mean, he's got.
I
I'll say
flipped
Spence
that.
is a better shot.
Yeah.
Clark probably gets shots through better.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's why I'd prefer Clark to getting shots through from the point rather than Spence in more of a one-timer role on the left circle.
I mean, if they really want to utilize the best skill sets out of these players, I mean, Jordan Spence. I mean, there's no doubt that he's got the best shot probably on anybody on the defensive side right now for LA. I think there was a clip of Clark talking about the tests that they run in development camp. He mentioned like Spenny always won those hardest shot. So if you're looking for a right shot, maybe one timer on the power play unit for top power play unit, put Jordan Spence in the top power play unit and just hand over the keys to Brent Clark on the second power play unit.
The problem with that is Doughty is also a big shooter. He's not much of a passer from the top. He loves letting them go from he scored as many like slap shot goals as anybody last year.
Yeah, he did a lot more last year. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Which I think the second power play is where I think
Okay.
Russell, you have a real actual argument for something, because as much as we want the players to play where we want to play, I think Hiller could be persuaded to be like, okay, let's run Brant Clark and Jordan Spence on the second power.
Oh, he has to. I mean, it's not even like a question.
No, that's not a question.
You have to put your best skilled players on the power play.
So what that would mean is you probably got those two, and then more
Ferrier, more Jeannot.
More Jeannot, Foegele.
Turcotte's got Foegele could be too. Yeah, Foegele, Turcotte we haven't mentioned. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. There's a lot of options, but if I still think that they had a hard time appropriately utilizing the bumper position, and I think a lot of that has to do with the handedness of the players either in the bumper or down low. Because take for example, Russ, your second scenario there. If you've got Clark on the top, Spence on the left circle, okay. So if Spence is on the left circle, he's going to be your shooter. So you're going to look. You can probably get away. You can have a right shot. So maybe Akil Thomas is your right shot in the bumper on the second power play, because if your two main shooting options are going to be the bumper or Jordan Spence on the left side. So you want lefties now. Ideally, doesn't have to be, but lefty down low, lefty half wall. So you could be looking at a Turcotte maybe down low. I can see Turcotte working down low, or Philippe Deneau, Trevor Moore maybe down low. But you need somebody that can dish to be able to utilize Spence and the bumper. That's what made Victor Arvidsson effective too. He was a good passer from down low. So you need somebody that is a good passer to be able to get it to Spence or be able to get it to the bumper. So you got to have lefty playmakers, and maybe that's where Warren Foegele comes into play. Maybe he's your down low guy on the second power play. If we go back to the first unit, depending on how they operate, and maybe it's somewhat similar, they just don't have a righty. It's just hard to really utilize that bumper role, and I don't know who it is. Like if Kopitar's on that left circle again, which is fine. Doughty's on the right. Fiala's on, or Kempe's on the right, I should say. Doughty's on the top is what I meant. And then you've got Byfield down low. It's just kind of, I'd almost like to see them go with more of like this is not to say he's not Connor McDavid. I don't mean that, but Connor McDavid is kind of free flows out there where he'll get the puck and he kind of just goes. You'll see him swing up a lot. He'll bring somebody to him and then he'll make a last second dish to Draisaitl or to Bouchard. I mean, we see Kevin Fiala operate like that a lot at 5-on-5, and he'll make a lot like maybe give a little bit more freedom to Kevin Fiala and kind of let that top power play be a little bit more fluid rather than structured, because Evan Bouchard is probably a little bit better of a playmaker maybe right now than Doughty, but a lot of what he did was that bomb from the point, and that's exactly what Doughty can do. And I think if you've got Kempe on the right circle most of the time as your elite shooter, like there's your Draisaitl-ish, right? Like it's I know.
What I would say though, Joe, is that 2 years ago they tried to get Kempe. It was like the Ovechkin treatment, right? They just try to get the one timers. Now teams are looking onto that, so they have to have that player. I think. Will they let Fiala fly in the way that you're talking about to have that first power play be effective?
I think if the way McDavid did, and again, I get it. He's the best player in the world, so I understand that Edmonton has that luxury. But I just think with the extra space that Kevin Fiala can do so much of, at least conceptually, and he's creative of a player enough and a really good playmaker and a really good passer he can swing up from behind the net, make his cut toward the middle, and then let him make the decision. Am I going back across the grain down to Kempe? Do I have a shot? Can I go to Doughty? Do I just regroup, go across to Kopitar and let things, I wouldn't mind seeing something a little bit different along those lines and getting Fiala just a little bit more creative, creative opportunity, because it's just tough to run a traditional 1-3-1. I think when you've got the only guy that's a righty is the guy at the top, it can make things a little bit clunky. We've seen it.
I think it's tough when you look at that kind of area there. Mikey coming in here with Arthur Kaliev was so good as a shooter on the power play, and they had Kempe as the shooter on the first line. They had Arthur on the second line, and then he lost favor with the team. The second line kind of seems like an afterthought now. Like, how do we make that work? It just seemed like last year, it seemed like Trevor Moore and Jeannot, it was just a bunch of grind. Hopefully we get a goal type players.
Yeah.
There was no direction that there was 2 years ago with Arthur Kaliev. So thank you, Mikey, for pointing that out. Where is the direct? I think there's no direction, or there's no direction for either team, either pair or line or series or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be interesting because they didn't sign any right shot. So are they going to rely upon the kiddos with Keel Thomas and LaFerriere, or are they going to try to make it work with a bunch of lefties? It'll be interesting how they go about that. Let's get into the next signings here. And we mentioned it a little bit with the future 1,000-game player Trevor Lewis signed, and then Phoenix Copley both signed to 1-year deals. I think everybody's fine with the Copley deal. We talked about it, I think, 2 or 3 episodes ago, that he'd be the perfect tandem with Portillo in the AHL. And, we know what he's like. We're okay with his development. He was around the Kings with his rehab. So I think they have the best knowledge about
I saw him just the other day, too. I saw him yesterday at Def Camp. He's in LA still.
Yeah, he has a 10-pack now, according to Russell Morgan.
It's all that tea that he's drinking.
Yeah. But then they get Trevor Lewis, who I didn't like that signing because you're bottling chances again on the fourth line for Trevor Lewis. And I get 1,000 games, but is that really the Kings' prerogative to let a player get to 1,000 games underneath the armament of the LA Kings, or is it to win games, period?
Yeah, I mean, the Lewis signing, to be honest with you, it doesn't bug me now. It'll bug me if it's, let's say, come next April and he's played 82 games. That's what it'll bug me. That's the issue. So I'm actually I think it's kind of cool that Trevor Lewis is going to play his 1,000th game in an LA uniform. I think it's very fitting. So I'm cool with that. Obviously trying to win games, Randon. So have that in the back of my mind. But yeah, if he's playing all 82, especially over players like if Samuel Fagemo is healthy and Trevor Lewis is still in the lineup every night, especially on like back-to-backs, give Fagemo some playing time, even if it is in the fourth line, which I still think he should be playing. top 9 minutes somewhere just to kind of see what you can get out of him, even though I'm not necessarily high on the player. But if he's around and he's getting sat for a player like Trevor Lewis, then that's where I take issue.
Question for you guys. Is there anybody that, and I know it's really early and we're probably too early for this type of a question, but I don't know. It's like, I haven't seen Martin Chromiak's name brought up at all. I know his season was maybe slightly disappointing in Ontario, but remember he had a pretty good camp, I think, if I recall, last year. And is like, is there an outside shot that we see him make a push for the roster, or is that a little too soon, you think?
No chance.
I don't think Chromiak makes it. I mean, if we're kind of just looking at prospects that may be kind of outside the realm of possibly making the team, Samuel Hellenius, possibly. I still think he's far off. I mean, I would think most of these players are far off. I wouldn't see any prospect outside of who's signed right now that we've talked about making the team. So yeah, I don't see it. Yeah,
I figured.
I mean, one player to watch.
Big players that don't have much offense. Andre Lee, he could make the team.
one player that, I mean, I was at Dev Camp yesterday and watched the scrimmage. I mean, Cohen Zimmer, man, this kid looks like the real deal. I was watching him and it's like he's constantly got a smile on his face. He's constantly talking. He's involved in activities. Just to kind of give you guys a little Dev Camp recap of what I saw yesterday. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the video I shared of him just laying the work on Glenn,
one-on-one,
on Glenn Murray's kid of all people. It was so funny. But I mean, and another thing that's kind of interesting with him too, since he's a late birthday, he's eligible to play in the AHL next year. I don't know if that's what their mind or what they have in mind for the kid, because I know he can still go back to the WHL, but just kind of have that in the back of your mind. Because I mean, I remember last year watching Zimmer at the rookie tournament at Dev Camp, and you kind of come in, you see most players that the first year you don't really see them kind of be the player that they can be. And it's more or less the second year that they come in and like, okay, we're more comfortable. I've been here before. And Zimmer has like, boom, man, like just I watched him like even during scrimmages, like he was just making plays, just doing whatever he wanted on the ice, having fun, laughing off at any hits that he was taking. And it was like, dude, this guy looks like he's having a lot of fun. And he looks like he has a skill to back it up too. So that was very impressive. Another player that actually I'm just gonna give you
Chris
guys
is asking the question is Antu Jamson recently coming over from Finland. How has he looked at Dev Camp?
I don't think he was there. I don't think he was playing. I think he's rehabbing something.
I thought he was coming over.
I liked him last year.
Yeah,
was he not coming over from Dev Camp? Okay.
No,
I thought he came over from.
I believe he was on the roster, but I didn't see him. But just to kind of give you guys a quick Dev Camp recap, Zimmer looks great. I liked what I saw in Matt Mania. I got the chance to talk to Matt too. He's pumped for the USA Showcase. I asked him to describe what kind of defenseman he is, and he said he's a two-way defenseman, which I thought was pretty interesting because you would think of Matt Mania as more of like an offensive type of defenseman, but he said no, I'm a two-way defenseman with a solid defensive game and got a little offensive flair to my game too. I saw Kirill Kirsanov. He exists, so he was there.
How big is he compared to?
He's a big boy. He's a big kid. I just saw him kind of walking around, but he's got a translator with him. I don't think he speaks fluent English yet, but it's just cool to see him around. I asked Glenn Murray about having him in town. He said that's huge for the player and the team to kind of get an
1 year left on his contract.
Yeah, so there's a legit chance he's playing with the Reign next year. Ryan Comney, again, like I tweeted this out, but like the vibes that I got when watching Alex Ferrier, who really just like a player I didn't really know too much about, but just caught my eye when I'm watching these scrimmages. I'm getting those same kind of vibes with Ryan Comney. I mean, every time, and Jared Wright too, same thing. Like I don't pay attention to like I'm kind of looking at the Zimers. I'm looking at players like more notable, but then like I remember this last year too, and I don't know why I didn't catch my attention, but the same time too, like Jared Wright, every time he's on the ice, like I'm like, wow, skates like the wind. Who's got an explosive motor to him? Looks like he just can go and go and go. And like if his team loses the puck, he's the first one on the back check trying to get it back, and more than likely he's getting it back because he's got the speed to do it. So that's another player to watch for. And one player who's taken a big jump, and I felt like the last couple of years, is Jack Hughes. This Jack Hughes that I saw just yesterday in the scrimmages is the Jack Hughes I think that they saw when they drafted him in the second round. Because the first time I saw him, he looked apprehensive. He looked almost apathetic to everything that was going on. But this Jack Hughes that I saw at the scrimmage the other day, I'm like, okay, there's a player there. So I'm excited to see what he can kind of grow into. He's got one more year left, I think, in college, and he's going to come over to the AHL or whatnot. So I'm excited to see what happens with Hughes. But there's a lot to like for some of these prospects. I was really impressed. But I think Zemer so far has been the MVP for me.
For a thing for me is like you look at Kirasanov. Yannetti said he was the most pro-ready player in his draft year.
Mm-hmm.
Played at the second best league in the world in the KHL for the last couple seasons. And now he's got a 4-year, $3.8 million per year player blocking him where he could be a cheap player to play solid minutes. He's good enough to play right now third line minutes in the NHL. He's playing first and second line minutes in the KHL, which is the second best league in the world. So he's good enough to play those minutes. He's a solid body. He's 6'2", 215, if I remember. He might be a little more or less than that, but I just you have the players in the prospect pool. You had England there. I don't mean to go back and backtrack.
Just gonna say, Brandon, just when I thought it was out, you pulled me back into the LD3 conversation, and they had two options internally after the acquisition of Burroughs, and then Moverari. Both are upgrades over England. It was just a totally unnecessary waste of 4 years, waste of $3.8 million that you figure after the Byfield. So let's say he gets $8 million. Say Byfield.
Let's talk about that with the Slafkovsky deal after this, but go ahead.
If Byfield gets anywhere in that, say him and Spence cost combined ballpark $9 million, right? Is that reasonable? So, So they've got, after that, I think they would have something like $1 million left over in cap space, maybe a little less than that actually. And it's like that $3.8 million is another player, like an actual player, like it's a middle six. You could find a middle six right shot forward for $3.8 million, and you're losing literally nothing by playing any one of Burroughs, England, or Moverari in that spot. And you're saving $3.8 million in doing so and using that money toward a middle six forward. And
you could possibly address that need at the deadline too.
Right. It is just astonishingly bad. It's astonishingly bad. So thank you, Randon, I thought I was past it, and you just brought me back.
Well, I mean to get you in war flashbacks there. With Slafkovsky getting 8.785, 8 years, $7.85 million. Does that mean more or less than what we should sign Byfield for? Obviously, that's not an option now with the Edmundson contract because you can't sign Byfield for 8.5 and sign Spence for 1.5. I don't think.
I think they could.
You really think they could? You think Spence would take 1.5?
I was doing some messing around on Cap Friendly. There's the real RIP, by the way.
Yeah.
So get your fix in before it goes away.
Well, the real champions we're 2 hours in. We're still 74 deep. So appreciate all you listening through us.
Appreciate all you. But yeah, what I was kind of messing around with, if Byfield gets the long-term deal, which, I mean, if Byfield signs the long-term deal, that's a huge win. They need to do that. That's where I'm going. That needs to happen. So give him 7-8 years, around $8 million. Then you give Spence maybe 1.75 for 2 years. I think that's around the same thing what Dursey got when he got his first contract, I believe. So they can fit that. I think I had 22 players on the roster with those contracts in mind, and they had like $400,000 in cap space. And I think Foegele and Burroughs were like the two extra players.
Same. Yeah, I have the same. I just was playing around with it myself for us. I had 8 for Byfield and 1.5 for, yeah, you're right. I had 1.5, but if it's 1.175, there's about 400 in cap space. So that, and it gives them 22 skaters. So they have an extra forward every night. They have an extra D every night. So they don't have to run short. So I think that is what they could do. And just imagine they could have 23 players if they didn't have, Joel Edmundson. They could have a full 23 and a better 23.
Well, you got
I mean,
Skinner. You have Skinner and have an actual winger on the first line.
Skinner chose to go to Edmundson.
I know.
I know. But no, I'm just saying, like, this is like, if you sign, you can't sign Byfield to a bridge deal now. You can't.
You better not now. Not after you.
Yeah, exactly. Because what are you going to use the money for? What are you going to use the money for if you sign Byfield to a $6 million bridge deal? You got $4 million in cap space, and what? There's no one.
Okay, let's throw hypothetical out there. What if they do like a 4x6 for Byfield and like a
no,
and a 4x4 for Spence? Get value out of both.
What I would love to see. I mean, if they can make it happen. I mean, I would love to for them to give Byfield like a 7, like same thing kind of Stokowski got, maybe 7,
8 by 7.5,
7.75, and then give Spence like a 5-year deal for like $3 million. Do something kind of, or something similar to what they did with Mikey Anderson. Like, just invest in like a player that maybe you think can pop off and have a good trajectory. Like I think Jordan Spence can. I think a lot of Kings fans would agree with that. Is you have a player who Jordan Spence who's put up great metrics, who had to put up great metrics with a play with a bad defensive partner. So I think you got a real good shot of him being a quality NHLer and maybe even a quality top 4 NHLer. So why don't you just invest in him? Why don't you just invest in him now before he has to get paid again in like 2 or 3 years, when then maybe the salary cap goes up, but he's still probably going to end up being like a $5 million, $6 million player at that time. Look what Sean Durzi just got paid. So I would just say, like, just Joe, you've talked about it on end. Like, invest in the talent that you have now. That way you don't have to pay him later.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's a lot to that. I think that makes some sense if they're able to work it. Obviously, there's a $3.85 million anchor that's kind of maybe holding a little bit of that back, Russ. And kind of to your point, like Adrian Kempe, it feels like just yesterday that Kempe was signed.
Right.
But after this upcoming year, he's got 1 year left on his deal. So we got 2 years. And this is what we talked about. Why what was it, a 4-year deal, just under 6 per? And it sounded like great value, but
5, I believe, something like that. But yeah, I remember at that time we were talking about
get him an 8-year deal.
Yeah. Why you pay your players?
Because what's going to happen in 2 years is this guy is going to. I mean, he could be a $10 million player if he keeps what he's. No, Kempe.
Oh yeah.
Like 100%. If he keeps scoring and playing the way he's playing, he's making 5.5 right now, which is a great deal. But they didn't. So this is the thing. This just goes back to this just awful roster construction. You have a guy like Kempe making a great deal, and you just can't. You're not taking advantage of it, because in a couple years he's going to make $10 million. So I don't know. It's just.
Well, I mean, and two, like what. I would love to know what Andrzej Kopitar is thinking, because he was asked at the end of the exit interviews, like, would you be okay signing up for a retool or whatever? And he said, no, I got 2 years left. I'm trying to win. But you look at this lineup. I mean, Rob Blake, like I mentioned, like he's talked about these young players that are going to be established roster players for the team this year. It looks like a transition year. It looks like a year where they're trying to develop and see what they can get out of these young roster players. This lineup's they're not going to beat the Edmundson Oilers in a 7-game series. There's no way in hell. They probably, like, they're not going to beat the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars. Like, are you kidding me?
So the Stars were a little, I don't know. They made some questionable moves.
And that's another thing too. Is like, that's kind of arguing against myself here. But you look at kind of the Pacific Division a little bit. Vegas, they got a lot worse. Vancouver,
they're not.
I'm not necessarily. You think Vegas isn't done?
They're always up to something. They're always up to something. But
Mitch Marner?
Trevor Connolly for Nikolai Ehlers. They just drafted the guy. They're going to trade him over to Winnipeg.
That would be such a big.
It sounds like he's been incredible though in their dev camp. Connolly.
Of course.
I don't know, man. Like, you got Eichel, Stone, Hurdle, Carlson still there. Like, I'm still in. Look at that decor with Pietrangelo, Hannafin, Theodore. Like, I don't know. I still think Vegas is a better team than Los Angeles.
Health is going to be the question for them.
Sure. Fair. Very
I
fair.
guess you could say it for everybody, but for them more. It's
Well, I mean, they're
obviously.
just gonna put $45 million on the LTIR and then make it work.
Trade for Crosby. Crosby in Vegas would make so much sense, right? Like him ending his career there, like that would just. That's
you're not Vegas. I see where you're going though, Russ, with the Pacific. I don't know what to think of Vancouver. But you know what? They did this to me last year. Like I was not high on Vancouver last year at all, but they did it, and I don't know. Like I don't love. I mean, they got. I don't know. I don't love what they did. I don't hate what they did.
Do you believe Pedersen can take that next level in the playoffs?
Yep, I think he's a star. I think so.
I think he was playing hurt. He may have been playing hurt too. I mean, that was such a big drop off. There's something going on there.
And I think Seattle is going to be a better team this year. I think Chandler Stevenson probably is overpaid.
A lot overpaid.
At 6.25 for like 97 years. That's a bit much, but he is a good player. He'll help them in the immediate, in the first or second year. Like if I'm a Seattle fan, I probably don't love that contract, but like for right now, I think he makes them more competitive. They're still missing a high end forward, so I don't know. That's still a hole. But
Berniers has to take off here. This has
but
to
their
be
D man they got Montour added in there. That's a good add. I don't know. You're right.
I really love what the Sharks did this offseason. They did nothing, but I didn't see any wrong move. They drafted well. They brought in free agents that Tyler Toffoli is going to be a guy that can score during the rebuild. I think the Sharks did really well this offseason.
Forgot about Toffoli going to San Jose. Yeah. And didn't they, where's that where? No, that's not where. So yeah, I don't think obviously the Sharks are rebuilding. I thought the Ducks were going to be better last year and they just weren't, but I guess
Did you see that post by I think it was an agent or it was a member of Anaheim said that they offered more money and term to every major free agent, but they didn't want to go to.
Yeah.
Why would any free agent go there? What is Anaheim given like confidence in any free agent that they can go win there?
Yeah.
All the major free agents though are older. They want to win now. Like that's not a rebuilding. Exactly. That's a rebuilding market.
Right. So what do you like? Let's dive into a couple of these teams. I want to get your guys' opinion on it because I agree. I'm like Pacific Division. None of these teams really scared me as far as what they did this free agency. But I mean, feels like the biggest team is Nashville, right?
That's why I think we might out of the wild card.
Which is so weird because you look at their lineup, like everybody wrote them off before last season. Oh, they're gone. Like rebuild's probably coming, and they just are continuing to go for it. You look at the Kings lineup, and you could have
Askarov.
You could have as high as many as like 7 players in the lineup that are 25 years or younger on the Kings next year.
Yeah.
In Nashville, they only have one in I think Evangelista. Everybody else is like they have like 4 or 5 guys that are like 30 plus.
Their window is now. 2, 3 more. Their window
they're
is
going
now.
for it. It's so crazy.
It's exciting, but I don't know like long term if it's a great move. But for the first like 2-3 years, they're going to be tough. The team for me in the Central,
if you hoist a cup, who gives an F, right?
Yeah, the team for me in the Central is Utah. I really really like what Utah's doing. I think if I'm looking at like,
isn't Sergachev the best D partner for Jersey? My God.
This is how you build a decor, by the way, with Sergachev, Jersey, Marino, Valimaki, Kesselring. That is a nice looking decor. Up front, obviously with Clayton Keller, they could probably use a little bit more help up front, a little bit more punch up front. But like, if I'm looking, I feel like we say this, it's now shifted back to the Central. This team's to ebb and flow.
Logan Cooley.
Yeah, Cooley's going to take a jump. Dylan Gunther is going to take a jump, I feel like.
And it's like
you have TJ Ginla, probably not this year, but next year.
You got Colorado still. I agree with Russ with Nashville. Dallas is still going to be really good. You could see 5 teams out of that Central with, I think Utah is going to be a team, and Winnipeg will be there again. Winnipeg will be back. So I think it's the Kings' best chances to finish in the top 3 in the division, which I still think they're right there. I erred in writing off Vancouver last year, so I guess I want to be careful in doing that again. So I can see that third place in the Pacific being an LA Vancouver battle. I don't think any. I mean, Edmonton looks poised to make it. They look.
Please win the division.
They-
Please,
Well, no,
for the
because
love of God, win the
we're
division.
likely to be a wild card. So
the only thing with Edmonton is they got rid of the wrong right shot tee. Cody Cece's still there. Vincent Desharnais,
Yeah.
who I don't think he's great or anything, but Desharnais off to Vancouver, ironically. So
funny.
So let's
Yeah.
let's get it. Do the Kings make the playoffs as you think right now, Joe?
Yes, I think they can finish third in the division.
Russ?
Yes, they do.
I'm saying no. I don't think they make the playoffs this year.
So really, who finishes ahead of them in the Pacific? Is it the three favorites right now in Edmonton, Vegas,
I think the Central, the wild cards are going to be there. I think the Kings miss out on the wild card.
So I know I've been really super like doom and gloom because I hate what they've done.
And I don't think we'll be a bad team. I think we'll just be. I think we'll be like a 90-point team or 89-point team.
Minnesota Wild.
That's possible. That is in the realm of possibilities. I'm not there yet because I like the forward depth. But I can see that outcome, Brandon. Like I said, I'm not gonna go there quite yet, but what I'm a little bit more worried about, I don't know what the direction of this team is. I have no idea.
And I want to say to all the people that think that I'm being pessimistic, if Clark's a 60-point player, which I think he can be this season, if Foegele is able to take his metrics and move them up with the minutes and maybe be a 60-point player there, I think if you get Spence with constant power play time, I think there's a lot of tracks to be a top 3 team in the Pacific. I just think that we're going to be too dependent on forechecking when we should be a transition and attacking team with the likes of Kempe and Fiala, our best offensive players. And I think that our styles are going to be too contradicting to have consistent offensive play within the Western Conference.
And I want to see, we've talked about how Hiller has said, maybe they're going to talk about playing a different style, which is fine, but they really didn't do anything I shouldn't say anything because it'll be Spence and Clark in the lineup like nightly. So they're going to have a little bit more offense there. But again, you still have at least a third of your decor that wants the puck off their stick as soon as it comes near their stick. And that's a problem. My concern is more for like in 2 years. Like, I don't think the trajectory of this team is for those not watching. I'm pointing up. I don't like a couple of years ago. I think all signs were pointing to this team is on the upswing. I can't say that now. I don't know that they're on a downswing, but they're kind of on like this plateau, and I don't know. They could go down just as easily as they go up. So that was where my concern lies, is I still think they're going to be, and you've mentioned the Minnesota Wild, Russ. The signings like Edmundson get you into the Minnesota Wild territory. Mm-hmm. Just that's waste of
the worst place to be.
A contract space. So I don't know. I think they're a playoff team still, but I don't know the direction of the team. Like, I don't know if is this off season like.
Then do you want to play a game?
Is
another percentage here. Percentage they make it out of the first round. What do you think? Give us a percentage.
10%.
Yeah. I mean, again,
which is way lower than last year. So this team is not getting better.
It's July 4th, by the way, here. So happy July 4th. So
fireworks,
it is way too early to say that. But if you're asking me, I don't. As this roster is, which, like we said, this is probably pretty much it. I don't see how this gets. It doesn't beat Edmonton, I promise you that, and it doesn't beat, I don't think, a healthy Vegas team. So,
like the super chat earlier, the kids, or you mentioned, Joe, earlier, the kids will make this year.
They can
break it, but they can make it. All dependent. I mean, we get to March and LaFerrier's got 20 goals or something and going crazy on the top line, and Akil Thomas has got his
Right.
and Brandon's getting paid by Joe over here, then Brant Clark's got some points. I mean, that's where you can see some.
And it's not all
positive.
doom and gloom for me. Like I said, it just the way
And
we're
that's the
looking
thing,
at
too,
the
like
signings
this-
right now and the roster it is, this roster is not better than last year. So are they going to play differently? Are they going to perform differently? Are we going to see better uptick from the young guys? All that's undecided. And that's why I said right now, if you were to say right now, what's the percentage? It's low because we don't see it on paper. Victor Arvidsson was a 60-point player. And we saw, and this conversation that we were having last year was, okay, he's injured, but second half of the season, he's going to come back. He's going to be that guy, yada, yada, yada. We're going to be able to make a move, etc. And we think Byfield can be you guys said 40, 50-point player. I said he would need to be a 60-point player to be effective. So all those things were trending in the right direction. This entire offseason is not trending in the right direction. So it's all hypothetical in this point. And we're going to have plenty of offseason to talk about this. We had Def Camp. We have hopefully maybe another trade. Please, Ehlers to the LA Kings.
Makes sense, some wishful thinking there. But one thing I'll say, because it sounds like we're going to sign off here. That, like I said, this season I have a lot more excitement kind of going into the season because I felt like last year, like it felt like there was this movie that it came out and everybody had told you was so good and was amazing. You had to go see it, and you went and saw it, and it was just so disappointing. You just left disappointed. That's what last year felt like. This year, it's like this movie that you've never heard about. You have no idea what's going to happen. So, but who knows? It could be bad. It could be good. It could be really good. And that's how I feel going into it. Because, I mean, who knows what we're going to get out of Brant Clark in his first full NHL season? Who knows what we're going to get out of Turcotte, Keel Thomas, LaFerriere in his sophomore slump, Quentin Byfield now finally getting the center line minutes, second or third line. I'm looking forward to it.
There's a lot of positivity with young guys, and I think that's where you should hang your hat, LA Kings fans. Believe in the draft. Believe in the young talent coming up on this team, because you've seen flashes of Clark. You've seen flashes of Spence. You've seen Byfield take that next step. Your next step should be go to hockeyroyalty.com to check out all of our articles coming out. Joe is furious with all his articles in the last couple of days, so go check those out. Go check out Kopitar for HOF. Mr. Kyle Garcia writing a lot of stuff going for the Ontario Reign and all of our prospect news. Follow us on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Like and subscribe. I'm long-winded right now because we're 2.5 hours in here. I don't think I got anything left to put into this outro.
The tank is empty.
So what I'll say is this. Kings fans, unite together. Talk about the positives coming up in this season. I know there's a lot of negatives that just happen in free agency, but this team's got some heart. There's a lot of players on this team that got a lot of heart, and they can play well. And I want to believe to start the season. That's what offseason is about, is belief. So if those young players can come in and take the next step, Norris Trophy for Brant Clark, I think that we can all agree before the first puck is dropped that there's a lot of potential in this team that can overcome the bad of free agency or the doubt of free agency. So thank you guys for liking this podcast. Thank you guys for sharing and telling your mom, your sister, your dad, your uncle, the bum on the street who has an iPhone to subscribe to hockeyroyalty.com. As always, thank you for all of our guests on our podcast and our sponsors here at the Hockey Podcast Network. Man, as always on this podcast, go Kings go.
Happy 4th, everybody.